morning, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to WJOB 1230 AM and 104.7 FM in Hammond, Indiana. And this is the morning call, and it's a two-for week. So actually, I'm happy to announce, ladies and gentlemen, that at least through the end of the year, the morning call will now be on every Wednesday plus every other Thursday. So we'll do this regularly. So it's been working out, and now we've expanded it. So this is the first of a number of two-for weeks coming up, and I will be back here tomorrow morning again at 6 a.m. So it's great to be here with you. We're going to get to traffic and weather, and then I'm going to talk about different issues, and love to have you call in at 845-1100. The phone lines are working now again. And one in particular, I want to tell you about what's going on at the Whiting, Indiana Post Office. This is something you really need to know about. But let's begin with traffic, and at the 6 o'clock hour, in Northwest Indiana, I-65, 8094, the toll road all look good. Klein Avenue still has construction. I would avoid it as there are backups going across the line into Illinois. The Bishop Ford looks decent this morning. Even the Dan Ryan looks pretty good. So does I-57. Looking at Lakeshore Drive is fine. The Stevenson, the Eisenhower, the Kennedy, and 294 all look pretty good at 6 o'clock. But, of course, that's subject to change pretty quickly. With that, let's go to weather. Good morning, Lynette.
Good morning, everyone. Today we're at 68 degrees with highs of 85 and lows of 64. It's going to be humid and a shower this morning, followed by a thunderstorm in spots this afternoon. And tomorrow and Thursday we'll be having highs of 79 and lows of 61. It should be partly sunny and humid. And then Friday we'll be having highs of 81 and lows of 60. It should be partly to mostly sunny and pleasant.
And I forgot to tell you, but the temperature in the Dabertin pool is 86 degrees this morning. Speaking of this weekend, there's a great air show down at Grissom Air Force Base in Peru, Indiana, just south of Kokomo. I'll be going down to that this weekend, so lots to do, lots to see, both locally and regionally. Wanted to spend a few minutes telling you about an experience that I had, and I'm a little embarrassed, but I think people need to know what's going on. So I posted this yesterday on Facebook. I posted it on the Hammond page, the Whiting page, and the Hammond Whiting page. And I got two responses out of the Hammond page, 3 responses out of the Hammond Whiting page, and 38 responses out of the Whiting Robertsdale page, which tells you where the problem lies. So back in June, I mailed off some letters or some envelopes, and they had checks in them. And those checks did not clear the bank initially. And then the other day, I was alerted by my bank that one of the checks basically had cleared my account, but it was for a substantial amount. So I went to the bank and found out. A check that I wrote to True Green Lawn Care for $93.08 all of a sudden became $4,093.08. And you could see where they just literally wrote right over with a magic marker, with a Sharpie, they wrote over the payee, and it went from True Green to someone by the name of Valencia Harvey. And it debited my account for over $4,000. I then found out that another check that I wrote to the U.S. Treasury for my quarterly tax payments was written to a guy by the name of Jaden Bates, and it was cashed on his account. Now, these accounts were largely from Chase Bank. So you've got who got the money, all right? It's clear that's not me. I filed a police report. The Whiting police were terrific. The bank is in Whiting. Lieutenant Jacob Wright came out and said, Tom, we've had a rash of these incidents, and started to tell me about the number of people that have had similar experiences in the with the Whiting Post Office. When I was in the bank, a longtime friend of mine came up to me and said, don't feel embarrassed. It happened to me about 2 months ago as well. And she proceeded to tell me that one of her checks was written to the U.S. Treasury, mailed to the IRS, and the exact same thing was done to her. Before you know it, I had people from a local church telling me about what happened to them, other people in town telling me what happened to them. It ends up that mail is being stolen out of the Whiting Post Office. So I went and I reported it, of course, to the Whiting Police. They wrote out a report. Their point is that it's a federal situation, so they're limited in their police powers. I called some friends of mine with Hammond PD, and I was told in one case that it had happened to another officer that I knew, but he said that it had to go through the Postal Service. So I called the postal inspector. Her name is Krista. She's assigned in Maryville. Now, I'm a big proponent and supporter of law enforcement, but there's an exception to every rule. And Krista basically gave me every excuse on earth why she wasn't going to investigate it. She said, oh, yes, there is a problem, and it appears that it's inside the Whiting Post Office, but I can't do anything because it goes to the Office of the Inspector General, and you need to report it to them, and if you report it to them, they will take your report, but they won't do anything. They'll just tell you that they're investigating, and that's it. And I said, fine, then I'm going to talk about it on the radio. Oh, don't do that because that might embarrass the Postal Service if you did, and it might alert them that there's a problem. And I said, well, she said it could interrupt any investigation. I said, well, who's doing the investigation? You just said you're not doing the investigation. And she said, well, that's right. So nobody is investigating these claims. You have 38 people as of this morning who are out on Facebook, folks, saying that they've had the same kind of thing happen to them. You're talking, in my case, over $8,000 out of my checking account. $8,000. Now, I'm told by my bank that I'll get it back because they will go to Chase, and Chase will reverse those deposits, and they'll refund the money. I haven't gotten the money back yet. So right now I'm out $8,000, but I will get the money back. Plus FDIC, I get all that. It's all insured. I've had to put freezes on my credit to make sure they don't steal my identity. Obviously, it was very upsetting. And then to find out that nobody's going to investigate this. I called the U.S. Attorney's Office. And when I called the U.S. Attorney's Office, there's a tape. And I left 3 messages now. Well, Adam Milford, or Milfred, whatever your name is, love to hear from you. You can call us at 845-1100. Randy Bell and all the rest of the U.S. Attorney's Office. Just call, because I've left a ridiculous amount of messages to the U.S. Attorney's Office. No response. Called the FBI office in Maryville. No response. So I've called law enforcement, and they don't care. What I'm being told by someone in the banking world is this happens all the time. They steal the checks. They whitewash the checks. They then scan them. They send them in electronically, and they hope for the money. And nobody does a damn thing about it. And it's getting worse. And you've got people who are victimized day in and day out. I had a classmate that I went to high school with. She said she had a 17-pound box stolen out of the Whiting Post Office. The postal inspector told me that she believes it is at the Whiting Post Office. And again, I posted it on 3 different websites yesterday on Facebook, and the only one that people posted that said they had similar occurrences was at Whiting. When I said, well, is this happening at other locations? One person said she thought that she had a check stolen in Munster because she had never got to the destination. That was it. So there's a rash of problems. By the way, I went to the Whiting Post Office, talked to, I guess he's the postmaster. I'm not sure. He mumbled the entire time. He goes, there's a problem. Yeah, there's a problem. I don't know if it's in Whiting or somewhere else, but there's a problem. And that's all he could say. And told me, well, you call and complain. I've called the Postal Service. I've called the Office of the Inspector General. What a joke that is. You call them, you give them the report, and their response is, yes, we've gotten your report. Thank you very much. And the postal inspector out of Maryville, Krista, said, oh, yeah, they'll tell you that they got the report, but you'll never hear from them again. Well, that's great. So you've got people that are being ripped off constantly. If you add up just the friends that have told me what was stolen from them, the church that was stolen from, and myself, it comes up to over $50,000. If somebody stole $50,000 from a bank in Northwest Indiana, it'd be headline news. Everybody and their brother out of Chicago would be there with cameras and, oh my gosh, a robbery of a bank, $50,000. But you've got people stealing money out of the post office in Whiting, and nobody does a darn thing about it. So I just wanted to get that out there. and love to hear from you this morning about this. But if you live in Whiting or Robertsdale and you're using the Postal Service, you need to take your mail somewhere else because they're doing nothing about it, and they're stealing your mail, and they're going to steal your money. And yes, you'll get it back, but at the end of the day, those, the cost of those losses get passed on to consumers day in and day out with additional fees and reduced interest and all the other impacts. So it hurts all of us, but nobody cares. 845-1100, let's go to the callers. Good morning, you're on the air.
Wow. That's quite a story.
Yeah, it is. And it's aggravating, Walt, because they don't care. They literally don't care. There's a woman by the name of Krista who is supposed to be a postal inspector. She's supposed to be law enforcement, sitting in an office in Maryville, and says, "Well, I can't do anything about it. It really has to go to the office of the inspector general because it's an internal matter, and they won't really do anything about it either." And then says to me, "Oh, but don't talk about it on the radio because it might embarrass the Postal Service." What? It might embarrass them. It ought to embarrass you. What are we paying you for? You're doing nothing. She admitted she's not going to do a darn thing. Oh, well, it's internal. It really belongs in human resources. I mean, really? It's theft. It is grand theft. Nobody cares. And where is our U.S. attorney? Hello? Where's the U.S. attorney's office? I checked my phone this morning. I've left them 4 messages now. 4 messages on their investigative line, and I haven't heard from one person. So there's your tax dollars at work. U.S. Attorney for Northern District of Indiana, Adam Milred, call us, 845-1100. Love to hear from you. I'd love to hear a response to my messages. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Have you considered talking to Congressman Mervan's office about this?
Congressman Mervan's office is going to tell me that the Postal Service is not under the direct supervision or responsibility of Congress. So, I didn't bother because I went online and checked, and I've seen repeatedly when you go in, you look for mail fraud, and the response is almost universal. Every Congress. So I'm not going to bother. The bottom line is that there's stuff going on. The Whiting police were extremely nice, and they said, "We're frustrated, Tom. We have handled over a dozen of these cases in the past year." The one officer that I mentioned said that he'd handled 4 or 5 himself, and he said, "We send it to them, and nothing happens. Nothing happens. Nobody cares. But you could steal $8,000 out of my account, and nobody cares. And you could steal $30,000 out of a church account. Nobody cares. And you can steal money out of everybody else's accounts, the people that have talked to me who've had, this happen to them repeatedly." And Walt, my dog could investigate this because you have the name, and the account that the money was put into, right? So Valencia Harvey, all you have to do if you're an investigator is contact Chase. They can pull up who she is, find her information, and then you go and talk to her and find out how she got the check. Or Jaden Bates. They have accounts. I talked to my own bank, and my own bank said the same thing. It's not that hard to find these people. They have accounts with Chase. But, oh no, we're not going to do anything. We're not going to investigate. Unbelievable.
Well, maybe a little good news for the victims of the power outage. Last night, I was watching Chicago news, and they said the number of ratepayers that were still out of power was down to like 1,100 kind of thing.
And why Walt was the power outage in Gary, which was severe, but why was it turned all of a sudden into a racial event and a racial matter? I'm sorry, but the people in Munster didn't scream that their power wasn't being restored because they were white. The people in Griffith who got their power back over the weekend, I know one person got their power back Sunday night. I know another person in Griffith who got their power back last night. and they didn't scream it was racism. Why is it racism in Gary? And by the way, you've got the top two leaders of Gary, Mayor Melton and Michael Suggs, who both worked. Their careers were with NIPSCO. So how is it racism? I don't understand that. I'm sorry, but I don't understand. Mother Nature is not racist. She didn't go and aim at Gary and say, okay, because we don't like the people of Gary. To me, this is ridiculous. There were people in Gary who suffered, but there were people in Highland and Munster and Cherryville and Crown Point and Hammond and everywhere else that also suffered. And none of them screamed racism, all right? One person texted me this morning and said, lives in Hobart, and said, we had some assistance, but not the amount of assistance that was being given out in Gary. There was food being given away. There were all kinds of things being given away in Gary. And it wasn't being done everywhere else, but in Gary, for some reason, it was viewed as it was racist. Look, I think NIPSCO is a deplorable company, and I think that the governor is right on target. He wants to investigate them, why they didn't care for their system beforehand, and he should move forward with that investigation. I have a lot of faith and confidence in Governor Braun these days because he's handled this crisis very, very well. But why is it that all of a sudden it's racist when Gary isn't being reconnected? And part of the problem is that the question should be, why is it that Gary didn't have line maintenance like some other communities, and what was going on all the years that Eddie Melton and Michael Suggs were heading up community outreach?
Well, Mayor Melton was on with the notorious Don Lemon, and they were talking about what was going on in Gary, and Mayor Melton basically agreed with Don Lemon that there was a racial agenda as to why Gary was so had so many people without power, and that it looked like things weren't getting done for Gary. So Mayor Melton went along with it, but as to why, well, there's a general issue, and that is the Democrats have a long history, particularly black Democrats, of yelling racism no matter what, because they have been able to get their way with that. They get away with it. It's just like the people who were stealing from you, from the people of Whiting in their checks, and nobody's responding. Nobody's willing to say, hey, this racial mongering of yours is just to get your way, and maybe avoid responsibility for your own failures.
Again,
and of course,
I feel for those people. I feel for the people in Gary. They should have not been having.
Sure,
they should not have had to wait as long as they did to get their power back on. But I also understand that in many places in Gary, the lines, the corridors where those lines were running through had not been maintained. The trees weren't being trimmed. The lines weren't being upgraded. But at the same time, I'm sorry, Mayor Melton, nice guy. Saw him a few weeks ago at the press conference that Governor Braun was at. He was very friendly, very nice guy. I've met Mike Suggs. I actually know him. They're both nice guys, but they worked for NIPSCO for years. They live in Gary. I don't know about you, but if I'm a manager or a director of an operation within a company, I would make sure that my community, especially when you're in charge of community affairs, I'd make sure my community was being taken care of. What does that say about their performance when they were with NIPSCO?
Exactly. So you're raising the question of responsibility going on within Gary, and the point of yelling racism is to avoid responsibility. Well, I was watching I was reading the Chicago Tribune on Monday, and there was a editorial made some interesting points that not only did Northwest Indiana get whacked, but also the Illinois side, particularly the south suburbs, and that on the Illinois side, ComEd had like 800,000 customers without power. NIPSCO had 375,000 customers without power. Yet ComEd was able to get the power back on within a matter of days, while NIPSCO, it has taken weeks.
Look,
kind of thing.
Talk to some of the linemen that have been up here. Read on social media about conversations people have had with linemen from outside NIPSCO, that whether they're from ComEd or Florida Light and Power or from Georgia Power. People are talking to these linemen, and these linemen are saying this is insane. They've never seen such a deplorable mess that like the distribution system that NIPSCO has. All right. I know again that the governor's office has already heard about it because they're launching an investigation. So you had NIPSCO for years and years sucking up our money and not putting a dime back in. Tim called last week and said that the lineman came to replace the pole across the street from him to turn his power back on. And he told the story that when the lineman looked up the age of the pole that had been snapped in half by the winds, that the pole had been put into the ground across the street from him in 1955. I happen to know Tim. He was born in 1961. So the pole was put in 6 years before he was even born. 71 years for a pole? Are you kidding me? I mean, who is holding NIPSCO accountable? Don't give me this baloney about how we're working our tails off to restore power. That's great, but if you had done your job to begin with, you wouldn't have had the mess that you have now. I mean, go down Calumet Avenue. I'm actually going to launch a contest on WJOB. I just haven't come up with the rules yet, but I want listeners to send me photos of the worst leaning pole, utility pole in Northwest Indiana. And I've got 4 or 5 candidates myself right on a stretch from 129th down to 120, up to 121st on Calumet Avenue. There are 4 poles. I measured one of them one day, and the pole is listing over 30 degrees. You're a Navy veteran. If a ship lists more than 30 degrees, it is considered to be in a catastrophic capsize. If it goes over 30 degrees, it's going to capsize. That's basically the laws of nature. If a ship is more than 30 degrees listing, you've got utility poles that are listing on Calumet Avenue more than 30 degrees. I went out there and actually measured them one day to check myself. And I've reported them for years. You call NIPSCO. NIPSCO, may I help you? Is this an emergency? No, well, okay, give me the pole number. All right, thank you very much. And they rush you off. They don't care. And then they go and they replace the same pole with another crooked pole or a pole that looks like they pulled it out of the ground. You know, it's been buried for 10 years and they stick it up. That's the problem with NIPSCO. NIPSCO put all these stupid relay systems in, this new electronic relay system that was going to make power restoration faster. I talked to one of the linemen. He says, well, yeah, the system in theory works well, but it doesn't really work. We still have to go out and reset the switches ourselves because the transformers, the substations are so old, like the one by me that was built in 1946. They're so old that the new relays won't work. Well, that's great. So they've wasted a lot of money and a lot of time. And again, it's your money and mine. They're a regulated monopoly, but they sure operate as a profit center, and they don't care. And so we've got garbage, and that's why the people of Gary suffered. That's why the people of Hammond suffered, and Maryville and Munster and everywhere else. And so I'd like to see NIPSCO come out and give a detailed plan of what they're going to do. Whatever his name is, Vince Parisi, the president, come on with me. Don't come on with somebody else and soft pedal what you're doing. Come on with me. I dare you. I dare him to come on. And I'll be glad to ask him questions because you know what? They're giving people this lip service how hard they're working. And yeah, the NIPSCO linemen are. And the ladies who are doing that work are working very hard, but they're only putting Band-Aids on what's already broken. There is no major plan. Their unit president said that, oh, well, we can't bury every line. No, you can't bury every line, but you sure could bury some of your main distribution lines. How about those lines that run down Indianapolis Boulevard out here? Those are 32 and 35K. Trucks go up and down the boulevard. Cars go up and down the boulevard. They lose control. They hit the pole. They knock down the wires. Maybe bury those. Maybe bury wires for major transmission. Not NIPSCO. Everywhere else in this nation, Commonwealth Edison's done it. Florida Light and Power has done it. Everybody else has done it, but not NIPSCO. NIPSCO just strings up more poles. It looks like spaghetti.
And our area, NIPSCO, is charging us the worst rates in the whole state of Indiana. It's not as if they're not getting some money.
We're in the top 10 in the nation. You know, California's got nothing on us. We're paying a fortune for electric rates. And as people have said before, you don't even have to use the electricity to have to pay a service fee, a transmission fee. Yeah, right. Hey, Walt, thanks so much. I'm being told we've got to take a break. You're listening to The Morning Call on WJOB 1230 AM, 104.7 FM. We'll be right back.
Indiana wants me.
You're a Hoosier serving in the military or living overseas? Indiana wants every eligible Hoosier to participate in our elections. Military and overseas voters can register and vote securely from anywhere in the world. Voting assistance for service members, families, and eligible Hoosiers is available now. Visit IndianaWantsYou.com or contact your county election office. And remember, Indiana wants you. Message sponsored by your Indiana Secretary of State.
Indiana wants me.
When your home needs help, the last thing you need is a faceless corporation or sales-driven franchise. At Myers Companies, we've been proudly local since 1951, born and raised right here in Northwest Indiana. We're family-owned and operated, built on trust, hard work, and integrity. And because we're family, we treat you like family. Your comfort and safety always come first. For HVAC, plumbing, and electrical done right, choose Myers Companies. Local, family-owned, here for your family.
Plumbers Local 210 is building the future, and we're looking for service plumbers to join our team. Our training center invests nearly $500,000 every year to make sure our members are the best in the industry. From a 5-year apprenticeship and an associate degree at Ivy Tech to ongoing certifications in safety and new technology, our plumbers are trained for excellence. Every member is drug tested and licensed for your safety and peace of mind. When you need plumbing work done, make sure you ask for the license. It's your right to ask.
St. Nicholas Byzantine Catholic Church, located at 8103 Columbia Avenue in Munster, celebrates Divine Liturgy every Sunday at 9:30 a.m. We are Eastern Rite Catholics in union with the Pope, the Bishop of Rome. All Catholics who celebrate Divine Liturgy or Mass with us fulfill their Holy Day and Sunday obligations as they do in their own churches. Join us in person this coming Sunday to find out the beauty of a Byzantine Catholic Divine Liturgy at St. Nicholas Church.
All right, folks, we're back. Thanks for being patient, and let's take your calls. We've got plenty of calls. Good morning. You're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, Tom. How you doing?
Good. It's Trucker Mike. I thought it was the U.S. Attorney calling. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I don't get me into that kind of box. No, it's just been one doggone day and doggone couple weeks.
You're using doggone in today's National Dog Day.
Yeah, I sent you the message.
Right.
They got a song out, Who Let the Dogs Out.
Right, but we can't play copyrighted music. So.
I know. You can't play that, I know, but I sent it to you so when you're walking your dog, or there's a song Walking a Dog too,
Yeah, there's a lot of songs about dogs, and some of them remind me of the Postal Service and the U.S. Attorney's Office and the rest of law enforcement, that federal law enforcement, not local law enforcement, that's doing nothing about thefts at the post office.
Let's talk about that fraud of the post office because of the federal office.
It sure is.
The Postal Service. Okay, well, many years ago, when they first started that electronic e-logs on the trucks, I used to go to Missouri a lot, and I always stopped at truck stop and get something from McDonald's. I mean, not McDonald's, Burger King inside the truck stop. And all of a sudden, I'm in, Ohio, way over there on the east of Ohio, on a Monday morning. I always check my bank balance every day on my phone. And all of a sudden, there's a $10 fee from Burger King in Missouri on Monday, which I am in Eastern Ohio on a Monday.
Mm-hmm.
So I print my e-log out. I go to the bank, and I told them, here's my e-log, a legal document showing that I'm in Ohio, and somebody used my card over at a truck stop in Missouri, and I know where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
So the bank and us got to the police. That lady did some kind of thing with the cards, and that local police department went there and got her, arrested her, took her to court. I had to sign papers. I couldn't drive down there. I had to do some kind of legal papers. And that girl that did that got a criminal record now and went to jail because of her stupidity of what she did.
For $10, Mike, but in my case alone, I lost $8,000 and they're doing nothing. They're going to get me the $8,000 back in the next 2 weeks, but they're doing nothing. Is there something wrong with this picture? I mean, I'm sorry, but you had $10 stolen off your credit card. The local police were able to prosecute. The local police, I understand, cannot take action because the Postal Service is federal. But what's going on with our federal authorities? So, again, Adam Milred, feel free to give me a call at 845-1100. He's the U.S. Attorney. Love to hear from him this morning because he's got 4 messages from me and I haven't heard from him.
And talking about the NIPSCO deal, yesterday I knew where the Mayor McDermott was, and I went there and I shook his hand and thanked him for what, I lived in Portage for 18 years. Never, all the years I lived there, we've had problems in that city, and it never got solved quickly. But I had to go to where that mayor was yesterday and shake his hand and thank him because he immediately hired somebody out of another state to come up, and the workers, the whole city of Hammond, now all the other cities did as best as they could. All the other cities in northwest Indiana that were affected by this,
a lot of cities did a really great job. You're right. Hammond did a great job, but so did Munster. So did a number of communities.
We can't just say one city did this, one city did that.
A lot of cities did a great job. And by the way, I just got a text from somebody who said maybe we should start a push for residents of Lake County to not pay their NIPSCO bill for the next few months and see how that goes.
But now the thing about Gary, Indiana, they had that black famous chef cook guy come to Gary. All he did was to make publicity. But now, this is what I don't understand. The Jackson family, raised and born from Gary, got famous, and many years ago, the city of Gary had to pay them to come to Gary for a reunion. Have you heard that the Jackson's family, like Dolly Parton, sorry she passed away, she's a wonderful person in the world. You seen last night on her show, the thing they had on her, how much she gave back to her city and her state.
Yeah, I made criticism before, Mike, about the Jackson family not investing in Gary after the fact that they made all their fame and fortune. I agree with you. But, hey, we've got to move on. We've got some additional callers.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. 845-1100, we've got additional callers. Good morning, you're on the air.
Hey, Tom, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for taking my call. Hey, Tom, I want to go back to your point about this check washing situation that you had recently.
Yes.
And I just want to give you a little bit on my background. I've got 40-plus years in the banking industry at the executive level. So this happens every day to banks, every day. And it's really, really important that every account holder at their bank checks their balances, and hopefully they do it on a daily basis. They look on an online banking platform or they have access to their account because this is an ongoing problem. And it's just, I live in Munster, and we've had multiple incidences at the Munster post office with the same situation.
And by the way, I just want to point something out.
Industry,
can I just point something out since you've got all this expertise or ask you a question? In my case, I do check my account regularly. Not maybe daily, but every other day. But one of the checks that they found was the check that I wrote to the IRS. It cleared, and it showed in my bank account that it cleared. It wasn't until closer examination that I found, though, that they had changed the payee. So when I first saw it on my checking account, when you go online, you don't always get the actual image. So I went online and it shows, yes, this check for, X dollars and this, this number, it cleared on this date. So I assumed it went to the U.S. Treasury. It wasn't until I went to the bank and they started pulling up all my checks and going through that they found out that check had been forged.
But can't you click on your online banking platform and see a copy of the check and see who the payee was?
Well, you can, but again, I'm bringing that up because it was stupidity on my part, and so my point is, you not only have to check to make sure the check cleared, but you have to make sure that the check cleared to the right person.
Yeah, your local bank will. I mean, they'll refund you, but I just want to comment too on the fact that probably 99% of all this check fraud occurs through Chase Bank. So your bank is going to have to identify Chase Bank before Chase Bank releases any information. And I can guarantee you that those accounts are already closed.
Yeah, and
Chase Bank is a behemoth institution, and people come in and they open these checking accounts for fraud reasons and fraud reasons only, and that account is probably closed already. And I doubt whether Chase Bank will react in a timely manner. They're just going to string this along. And like I said, your bank will give you your money back, but they're not going to get anything back from Chase.
Yeah, and you know what? I heard that from somebody who's been in the banking legal industry for years and was a deputy corporation counsel for Chase, and they said the same thing, that Chase basically is not going to be cooperative, that they basically have built this into their into their budget, that basically they write off this fraud and they're just not going to cooperate and they're not going to bother with anything and they're just going to eat it. And at the end of the day, you wonder why service fees go up. You wonder why interest rates go down. I mean, this is all built into Chase's profit margin. And so they basically, they just write it off. Yeah.
Your local bank will end up bearing the expense of this transaction.
Really?
Chase will string them along, and that account was opened probably electronically using their online platform, and the check deposit was made probably through remote capture.
Yep.
They took a picture of it, sent it in, and they saw that as soon as that check cleared at that account, the next day they went in and got the money, and the account's closed.
So
there's probably no money sitting in that account at all.
So given your expertise, one of the things I was told by the police officer is that what they do is they use like a Sharpie marker, because the Sharpie marker is going to be picked up more quickly by, taking a picture of it by the camera. So they went and they traced out my signature, and then they just took the Sharpie marker and wrote right over True Green. You could see True Green in the background, but they wrote, Valencia Harvey instead, and then changed the 93 to 4093. And they just did it all with a Sharpie marker. And it's because the Sharpie is going to be picked up by the camera easier than the pen was that's in the background.
I don't know. I don't have any expertise on how they do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't respond to that. I don't know. But from what you're saying, it makes all the sense in the world, because, banks, when they pay checks, they look at the activity in the account, and this is probably a normal dollar amount that was flowing through your account that didn't kick off any red flags.
Well, can I ask you, again, given your expertise and your background, and I really appreciate the call, I don't write too many checks for $4,000, though. I really don't. I mean, the one to the IRS is going to be large, but that's kind of a rarity, that happens a couple times a year. But, I mean, it just seemed to me that $4,093.08 would set off a red flag. I guess it did, because ultimately, I found out about it. But it seems like the bank would have some sort of a threshold. I mean, if somebody wrote a check for $10,000, does the bank, just curious, do banks basically have some sort of threshold that says, hey, wait a minute, we better check that one, or not really?
individual banks do have their individual thresholds on what they would think would be a normal transaction versus a non-normal transaction. But probably your account balances that you're carrying at the institution, they look at that and they say, this is reasonable.
Gotcha. Well, again, it's troubling.
But I can't,
Go ahead.
This is happening in Munster too. And I tell my wife that the only person that's going to call you from the bank is me. And because there's so much of this fraud going on, and with AI coming on stream as strong as it is, and people building this data information about you and how they can defraud you, it's only going to get worse. And so I can't emphasize the fact that every account holder at any bank should be looking at their balances almost on a daily basis.
Yeah,
because the banks are being hit on a daily basis.
And I will tell you this, and this will probably be a little entertaining to you, but when they opened up the new account for me, they asked me if I wanted to order checks, and I said, no, you can just give me a couple of counter checks. I don't plan on writing checks for anything. I mean, unless I'm going to hand that check to you, I'm not putting any checks in the mail. I can't believe that, again, what I consider to be just a small amount that I owed to True Green became a $4,000 hit on my account. So I'm just not going to write checks. I mean, at the IRS, I'm going to do all their payments online. I know, traditionally, if you put it in the mail, there's a float on your money, but I'm with the IRS, but I'm just going to go ahead and pay on time because to go through all this, it's the emotional headache too. The fact that you're upset and you find out that somebody, did this. I don't plan on writing checks anymore. I really don't.
Well, probably what you should do, Tom, whoever perpetrated this fraud against your account has your account information. They know what bank you're banking with. I would strongly recommend that you close your existing account and open a new one, because
I did.
They may just kind of go into a sleeper cell and not try to perpetrate another fraud until maybe a year from now or 2 years from now.
Yeah,
they do have your account information, and they do have the protocol that your bank is following.
Yeah, they did. I did that. I closed the account, like I said, when I went to the bank and they opened the new account. They asked me if I wanted to buy any checks, and I said absolutely not. So, hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate the education and the information.
Thank you
so much. Thank you.
Have a great day.
845-1100. We've got some additional callers. Good morning. You're on the air.
Tom, who pissed in your cornflakes?
Well, a woman named Valencia.
Hold on. I got another question.
Okay.
Why are you angry? Why are you blaming people?
Because
accountability.
Yes.
Accountability is what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Oh, you're not blaming people. You just want people held accountable to do the job they get paid for every day.
Well,
right?
I mean, think about it. Think about it for a minute. I call this woman named Krista, who is a law enforcement officer, a sworn law enforcement officer for the U.S. Postal Service. Her office is in Maryville. And instead of saying, look, we'll check into this, if she had just given me lip service on the call, if she had just said, yes, we're going to check into this and thank you for bringing this to our attention, I would have felt great and never worried about it again, right? I probably would have told the story but said, oh, yeah, they're investigating it. Instead, she says to me, well, we can't investigate it because this is an internal matter, and so it goes to the office of the investigator general, and they're not going to do anything on it anyway, and this is a problem that's going on, and yeah, it's probably at the Whiting Post Office, but we're not going to investigate it. And then she says to me, and you don't want to talk about it publicly because it'll just create adverse publicity. It'll tip off the people doing it. And in addition, it'll give bad publicity to the Postal Service. Like, what? I mean,
Well, Tom, it's a government job.
Oh, big
time.
Try
to get rid of her.
Big time. I mean, again, here you've got Whiting PD. I'm at the bank. We call Whiting PD, and the officer shows up within 2 minutes. He's in the bank. He's there. I mean, yeah, I happen to know him really well. He's a great police officer, Jacob Wright. He's a lieutenant now, and I'm proud of him because he's a young guy and he's already a lieutenant. But he shows up immediately. Couldn't have been nicer. Says, Tom, let me take a look at this. Hey, I'm sorry this happened to you. He goes through, he looks at everything, he takes photos of the checks. He does his due diligence right away, okay? I talked to somebody who had a similar situation up there, and they reported to Hammond PD, and they said, Hammond PD, same thing. Showed up immediately, makes you feel like, okay, somebody's doing something. And then they tell you that when they try and get cooperation out of the Postal Service, they run into a brick wall. And it's like, wait a minute. So I call the Postal Service and I get nowhere. And I'll tell you, they have all these 800 numbers and you're on forever. And when you finally get someone, I swear to God that they're farming out their customer service now, or their hotlines, to overseas. The person calls, the U.S. Postal Service, ma'am. It's like, what? Who? And you can't even understand them. And then they pass you around to 5 different people. And the woman was exasperated when she took my first report. And she's like, well, you don't know that the Postal Service did this. And I said, well, yes, I do, because I took the checks to the post office, put them in the slot, and somebody, maybe it's a person that received the check stole it. And I said, what, you mean there's an employee at True Green that did this? Well, you don't know that they didn't. And I said, well, how is it that they did it at True Green? They did it with the U.S. Treasury. They did it with the Indiana Department of Revenue, and they all used the exact same marker. It's like, she's like, well, you don't know that. It's like, okay, great. So make excuses. Yeah, you're right. It's all about accountability. I mean, you want somebody to do something. They're getting paid to do a job. Do your job. And it's the same thing with the U.S. Attorney's Office. I've called them 4 times. I haven't heard from one person.
Okay, so let's go to Trucker Mike having to tell people that he went and shook the mayor's hand. That's what the mayor gets paid to do, Mike. We're in the day and age that if you do anything extra, all of a sudden you're a hero. People get paid to do jobs, Mike. You don't need to go shake their hand. Doing their job is the bare minimum.
Yeah, look, I don't think it's a bad idea to shake somebody's hand, but I agree with you. They did their job. Look, the mayor of Hammond did a great job. Okay, they did a great job on the storm cleanup, no doubt about it. And again, so did Munster, so did a number of communities, and they deserve to be praised. But on the other hand, I'm not giving any praise to NIPSCO. I'll give praise to the linemen that are working for him, but I'm not going to give praise to NIPSCO's management team for this mess.
Why did you call out Suggs and Melton? Is that needed?
Well, my point is that everybody keeps on saying that it was racism and the lack of response and the lack of care and the lack of investment in Gary. But my point is that the 2 guys running the show these days were in those positions. So, don't say that it was racism, because it was a lack of care. It was a lack of maintenance in Gary is what caused the problems.
No, Tom, you're wrong. The CEO's been on here.
Yeah.
He's done everything he possibly can do. Hey, serious note, looking at your mail problem.
Yeah.
Who is the gentleman in Gary that was connected with the Postal Service that ran for sheriff?
Oh, yeah, there was a postal inspector guy, wasn't there? Yeah, I forgot about that.
Colonel, I can't think of his name, but maybe he could steer you in the right direction once you track him down.
I might do that. That's a great idea. Hey, thanks for the call. We have callers waiting. Give us a quick break. We'll be right back. You're listening to The Morning Call on WJOB.
Need clean energy without the junk? I'm Jim Deedlow. I used to live on burgers, football, basketball, baseball. Now I'm gluten-free and more into biking, golf, and yoga. But I still need energy. That's why I love Paradise, developed by Emily D. Edwards right here in Cherville. My favorite is Paradise Packs Strawberry with gluten-free pretzels. Find it soon at Strachan Van Til or at spreadparadise.com.
Free summer music is still rocking at Fox Point. Our Wednesday night concert series brings Trippin' Billy's, the 1985, Elton Jeff and the Honky Cats, Mike and Joe, and Dick Diamond and the Dusters. Friday Night Lights brings you Gold Dust Dreams and One of These Nights on August 21st, and Mexico and El Corazon on September 4th. Fox Point in Lansing, Illinois is just minutes from I-8094, and parking is free. Visit foxpoint.org for our full schedule. That's point with an E, foxpoint.org.
Get ready for Wings Rock fun and prizes at Wing and Roll. Friday, September 25th from 5 to 9 at Bulldog Park Pavilion in Crown Point. Sample wings from Northwest Indiana's top chefs. Vote for the People's Choice. Enjoy live music from Backstory NWI and win incredible prizes. Tickets are $75 with tables of 8 for $575. Every dollar helps support Mental Health America of Northwest Indiana. Get your tickets now at mha.rallyup.com/WR 2026.
For over 140 years, the Central Midwest Carpenters have built our communities in Northwest Indiana. Are you ready to join the effort? We have long-term work, competitive pay, and the best benefits in the industry. We pride ourselves on innovative training and commitment to worksite safety. Earn as you learn as an apprentice. A solid career built on a solid legacy. For more info, go to carpenters.com.
IBEW Local 697 electrical contractors bring the highest standard of electrical work to Lake County homes, schools, and businesses. From everyday fixes to once-in-a-lifetime builds, we don't just get the job done, we get it done right and up to the highest safety standards. When you need electrical work, hire the professionals who power Indiana. Powering Indiana, Lake County, bringing excellence to the job, creating a brighter future for our community.
All right, we're back, and we've got plenty of calls, so let's go to the callers. Good morning, you're on the air.
Good morning, Tom.
Good morning.
Hello?
Yes.
How are you doing this
Fine, fine. How are you?
Okay. Oh, I'm kind of getting over this little, I don't know, I guess my system with allergies and
yeah, I didn't recognize your voice
like
at
that.
first. You sound like you've got, like you're a little congested.
I'm getting over with it.
Eat some watermelon.
And I never run.
Eat some watermelon. It's good for you.
That season just ended. Okay, and I'm glad it ended. It's time for it. Well, let me just say this. And I never run from conversation. I call in all the time, whatever the situation may be.
Yeah.
I want to talk about NIPSCO.
Yep.
NIPSCO. I've protested NIPSCO for so many years. It's not even funny,
Right. Right. I know you have, but hold on a second. Wait a second.
Preventive maintenance.
Right.
Preventive maintenance. That's what I want to talk about right now.
Right.
Then we'll go preventive maintenance. I think you just kind of said early on. When I came to Gary in 1965, I guess 2 years later, I owned some property because I was very energetic and doing a young man buying a house and all that. And NIPSCO used to come through my area and say, "Hey, I say, look here, these lines, we need to cut. Of course you come in my backyard, you can cut those, because basically what they're doing, they're protecting themselves from these lines hanging over the utility lines, and so, but again, and I have talked and harked of this for years before this happened. Unfortunately, something happened right now. I said, what are you doing? I could not get them over here to do this now. Right now, they had to come back in that area if they had done what they were supposed to do.
But Ron, here's the problem.
Okay.
Here's the problem. They haven't done it in Munster. They haven't done it in Robertsdale, where I live. They haven't done it in Whiting and Hammond and Munster and in East Chicago, in Highland, Cherville. The point is that the problems that exist in Gary exist everywhere. Okay, I went to visit a friend of mine. He was on the radio with me a few weeks ago, Don Erminger. Okay, Don lives in a really nice subdivision in Munster, but you could see where those lines were down. They hadn't done any maintenance in years. So where is all the money that we're paying? Right, but I'm agreeing. Ron, I'm agreeing with you. Why is it that NIPSCO says that it's not their fault? It is their fault because they didn't do the maintenance, right? They didn't do the maintenance to maintain all these lines.
Right. And it wouldn't have happened had they done that. Well, I wouldn't say it wouldn't happen. Probably 30-40% of it wouldn't have happened. Okay.
Right, but here's another thing. Here's another thing. You've lived in your home since 1965. You said, right?
Well, it was 67.
Okay, 60. That's right. You bought 2 years. 67. Ron, the nearest telephone pole or utility pole to your home. When's the last time they replaced that pole? Yeah, do you see my point?
I can't even remember.
Yeah, you see my point. I mean, here you got a guy calls in from Portage the other day. He calls in last week. He says that they basically come out and replace the pole that snapped across the street from him. And the guy says, yeah, this pole was put in the ground in 1955. And the guy that he's talking to was born in 1961. You've got utility poles that are 70 years old. Isn't there somebody at NIPSCO that says, you know what? Hey, Ron, you and Tom need to go out and replace that NIPSCO pole there because it's 70 years old. Maybe it's time to replace it because, everything rots after a while, but they don't do any of this stuff. That's the problem. You're right on target on this. They don't do any maintenance.
Now let me just say this in reference to Melton and Suggs.
Yeah.
I used to go out there and protest all the time. And what I was protesting because NIPSCO had a history of not hiring people of color. Okay, they really did, and I have to give Mike Suggs the credit for this. I jumped on him. I said, Mike, you don't own NIPSCO, okay? You don't own NIPSCO. He said, you're right. He said, well, I'm going to try to. I say, because right now there are people hollering in our community that NIPSCO is not hiring blacks in terms of, and I know that they have to be prepared to do the job, of course. But there are agencies here, career centers, that have them ready, and the unions, the union.
But shouldn't they hire qualified people first before it becomes color? It's got to be qualified first.
Didn't I just say that we had agencies here was going to get them ready, and the trade unions and stuff like that. Yeah, yes, absolutely, you have to be ready. Right. And I'm just simply saying, but as a result of Mike Suggs, let me just tell you, I can say this: he did a tremendous job of getting a lot of blacks. I saw so many blacks working in there now. I said, well, what's going on? So I have to give him that. Now I don't know what Melton's position was.
Well, he was in community affairs like Mike Suggs. But here's the thing. What you're just saying is, okay, there's a lot of black people working there, and that's great, and they're qualified, and that's all good.
And they're qualified.
But then you've got all these people saying it was racism because Gary wasn't getting repaired. So how was it racism that Gary wasn't getting repaired when by your own admission, there are a lot of black people working for NIPSCO and they're qualified and just like everywhere else, NIPSCO wasn't doing the maintenance in NIPSCO in Gary any more than they were doing in Munster or anywhere else. So how was it racism all of a sudden?
Let me go there. Let me go there.
All right.
I left, and you may have heard me say that I left my home here in Gary, traveled to in South Illinois for 5 or 6 days because I wasn't going to stay in this house. Okay.
Right.
So I went down there and stayed where my son lived near there. But I rented a motel, whatever, and I said, well, I'm going to go back. So I heard on the news, because the news was carrying it all over,
Sure.
And people calling me all over. They said, I said, what's going on? So you ever heard tell of Glen Ryan?
Yes.
You ever heard tell? Okay. Glen Ryan is a subdivision of Miller. We call it Glen Ryan is on one side of 12 and 20, and Atten is on the other side.
Right.
Okay?
I know exactly where it is.
And when I went into Glen Ryan, I drove around, and that was a councilman. My name is Mr. Whitson, Kenneth Wisington. Okay, this is his name. Okay, so I said, look, I want you to meet me there, and I want you to ride around with me over there. And so he said, yeah. And I say, they have not even touched that thing. They had not even touched Adna.
Right. But Ron, wait a minute. No, you're not. No, Ron, we've got to pick up the pace. We got a lot of callers, and so you got to get to the point because this story's going really long. So
okay,
you got
what the racism came about.
Yeah.
You know, I think that was when you leave it out a predominantly. Glenn Ryan is predominantly probably 95% black.
Okay.
And nobody, they had not even been touched.
Right.
Trees were on the house and everything. So that's what the people are saying in that community.
All right, but again, so the NIPSCO linemen that you said there, a lot of them are black. We're doing the racism then, because what you're saying, Ron, just doesn't make sense. Because I sat with my friend out in Munster, and they didn't have anybody come around to them either. They had nobody. I was there a week after the storm, and nobody had been down their street. So that just doesn't hold water. I mean, just because they weren't going out to that neighborhood.
Yeah, but when those neighbors were hollering what was happening there, that was their opinion was.
Right, but all of a sudden it went from their opinion to becoming to the news that was the case, and that's the issue. Hey, Ron, thanks so much for the call. We got to go to a break, but thanks so much for the call. NIPSCO is terrible. I agree with you every day of the week on that one. You're right on target, and I hope you feel better, Ron. Take care. We're going to go to a break real soon, but I thought. Okay, so after the break, Jed's got a quick announcement. We're going to go back to your calls. I know we got a lot of callers. You're listening to the morning call on WJOB 1230 AM, 104.7 FM. Of course, you can also listen on the TuneIn app and YouTube Live. We'll be right back.
It's the simplest expression. The smallest thing that changes everything. A smile. So easy. A smile lights it up. Apologizes and welcomes unconditionally, because the shortest distance between two people is a smile.
Thank you.
Strachan Van Til, where making life easier starts with a smile.
The best just got better. Tech Credit Union is proud to celebrate being recognized with Best of the Region, Best CEO, and Best Banker. To celebrate, we're offering 3 special CD offers with rates up to 4.5% APY for a limited time. Visit techcu.org or stop by your nearest Tech Credit Union branch or call 800-276-8324 to learn more. Tech Credit Union, the better option for people and communities we serve. Member NCUA. Minimum deposit required. Offer subject to change. Visit techcu.org for complete details.
From the gas in your car to the heat in your home and the roads that you drive on, our work powers daily life. We are USW Local 71, the proud men and women of the Whiting Refinery. We're not just refinery workers. We're your friends and neighbors, raising our families here, shopping in the same stores, and cheering in the same stands. USW Local 71, powering the region because we are the region.
We've had some cars run into the barrier wall, not paying attention. They were on their phone.
Texting, scrolling. Yeah, it's bad. Most often they be on their phones or they're just not paying attention. They can cause a crash.
We could stand on the side of the road and watch every other vehicle looking down into their lap as they're passing us. You know what they're looking at. They're looking at their phone.
Phones. On their phones, not paying attention.
Phones. I'm not a mathematician, but I say probably about 80% of the people who pass me are on their telephones.
No call, text, or video is worth putting yourself or a road worker in danger. When driving through construction, LIUNA members ask you for your sake and ours.
Slow down, stay off your phone, please. Be aware where we're at, where the cone zones are at.
Stay off your phones and buckle up and drive safe.
We're not asking for much.
This is Brian Short, Business Manager for the Indiana Laborers District Council. Everyone deserves a safe place to work. Do your part in the cone zone. Slow down, save a life. We're all in this together.
A message from Laborers International Union of North America and affiliated locals.
All right, we're back, and I know we've got jam phone lines. We're going to get right to your calls, but Jed has an announcement, and even before that, I want to just give a quick update. The Dan Ryan now is backed up all the way into the Bishop Ford, and it's down to about 103rd. So I got a text message from a friend who said, hey, Tom, you need to tell people, in fact, I'm looking now, it's down to 111th. So be very careful on the Bishop Ford and Dan Ryan this morning. I will tell you, Lakeshore Drive looks pretty good this morning, so you may use that as an alternative to get into the city. Otherwise, traffic's pretty decent in Northwest Indiana. The usual problems in Chicago. With that, Jed, you wanted to come on?
I do. I do have a couple things to say, but I think Lynette wants to do the weather real quick, right?
Sure.
Yeah, that's what she wants.
Good morning, everyone. Today we're at 68 degrees with highs of 85 and lows of 64. It's going to be humid and a shower this morning, followed by a thunderstorm in spots this afternoon. Then tomorrow on Thursday, we'll be having highs of 79 and lows of 61. It should be partly sunny and humid. And then Friday, we'll be having highs of 81 and lows of 60. It should be partly to mostly sunny and pleasant.
Tom, I just want to come on right now to thank a lot of people, including you, who manned the studio and the microphones for hours on end when a storm came through here of magnanimous proportions, and it seemed everybody was out of power. 374,000 customers at one point, from what I understand. But somehow we had power, and we didn't really have phones for off and on, and people had to take the phone calls on their cell phones, especially from local officials.
I'm still getting calls on mine.
I know you are. You had to give your number out, and I apologize about that, and Kuziak did too, and I think Starkey did too. But there's so many people, Kuziak definitely, Starkey, Pullen, and Michelle Quinn, Larry Kyleman came in on a Saturday night just to man the phones and calm people down. The list is very long of people that contribute and do not get paid here. I mean, Colby taught me a long time ago, you don't really pay for content. You just pay for, people to run the station, and that's what we do. So personal thank you to you and to the many listeners and the other contributors and the many people who called in with, basically news reports of what was going on. Radio worked exactly how it is supposed to work.
Yeah, and a shout out to Councilman Mark Kelwinski, who actually brought that up at Hammond's City Council meeting on Monday night. That the one way people could communicate and could find out what was going on was WJOB, and he said radio works. So
and it did work because of people. I do want to just point out that I think that it marked the birth of Adriana and Lynette, working with Lori, as they were able to quarterback all of it. I had very little to do with that, and it just somehow Lynette, who gets excited about nothing, was able to quarterback it along with Adriana, and I just think that it's experience that you guys will use in your careers wherever it takes you. I do have to say that the current criticism of NIPSCO is warranted, okay? I think it has shown what has happened to a company over the many years, and it's also not warranted. In my mind, I think that people have to look around and say, we couldn't get through to NIPSCO. They weren't going into Gary. The EMS weren't coming to our town. Let me just tell you, today at 9:30, I'm going to have a guy named Gary Sikich. You guys have heard him before. He's a consultant like Dabertin here. And he consults on pandemics, and he consults on catastrophes. He's a region guy. I just happen to know him. I asked him to talk to me, what has to happen here for us to better deal with emergencies? And he's like, dude, there's one thing. You got to communicate. You have to have that set up ahead of time. And to me, it just blew my mind to wake up on Sunday morning and read a national story in the front page of the New York Times that our power company is racist towards Gary. To me, that is not a racist problem. That's a communication
and
problem.
even Ron just said that's really, he said that people were saying that because of their frustration, but that, he agrees. It wasn't racism, and I think that's what a lot of callers are waiting to talk about. So
I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. Radio worked how it is supposed to do, and everybody who wants to rip on NIPSCO, I'm okay with that. I got all sorts of issues that myself, and I left that citizens board that I was on for 17 years because I honestly didn't like the direction. And that's a different story. But we do not communicate with each other. You're at the center of this because you know how many different communities there are and how many they have their own ilk and they don't want to be bothered, and they're very reluctant to even talk to another community, let alone give up any seat, any sort of communication power. We have to look ourselves in the mirror. We were the ones who do not have a system in place, even though we learned it from the 2008 flood, even though we learned it from the 2026 storm. I have very little faith that this will be addressed in the future.
I agree with you, and I have not a lot of faith and confidence in NIPSCO. Again, when you look at the age of the utility poles and the fact that Ron pointed out that he's owned his home since 1967 and he's never seen anybody come in and cut the lines or change out utility poles, that says a lot. Okay, I mean, you're talking about 60, 70 years in some cases, 70 years in the case of Tim from Portage, where the NIPSCO pole was there for 71 years and nobody bothered to say, hey, and it's got a transformer on it that, hey, maybe we ought to change that out at some point. And that's where NIPSCO deserves the criticism that it's getting. I agree with you. It wasn't the call takers and those people. Those people were doing their jobs. The
linemen were amazing.
They were doing their jobs. They were all doing their jobs faithfully and working hard. But somebody has to own the problem, okay? Don't give us excuses. Don't tell us. I saw Florida Light and Power up here, and I've mentioned before, they handle South Florida where my condo is, and you talk to the linemen down there, and they tell you about, they have these they look like carabiner clips that they put on the poles in addition to the pole. They put this little clip, and they say, well, that's a fail-safe. So if the line comes loose, then it doesn't fall to the ground. It stays up. And, I said, well, how much do those cost? And the guy says, they're under $2. Okay. They have them on every single pole. In Florida, every single pole is made of reinforced concrete or steel. We have the largest steel making capacity in the nation right here. How many NIPSCO poles are made of steel? Almost none. And there's just a lot of frustration when you talk to ComEd. ComEd is in here right now, okay? So I had a good friend who talked to a ComEd linesman, and he said, I came across the state line to help out, and he said, and I thought I stepped into the third world. And the guy said, oh, where were you working? And he said, Munster. Okay, Munster isn't the third world, okay? Munster is an affluent neighborhood, but according to the ComEd linesman, when he looked at the way NIPSCO was strung about in Munster, it looked like the third world. I mean, there is no excuse for this. We're paying all these exorbitant rates. They ought to be able to fix the system. And I'd like for somebody to come in and tell me, hey, we're sorry, here's what we're doing, and give a specific. You look at all these poles along Indianapolis Boulevard, for example, all right? 32,000 kV. Those lines should be buried. Okay, but they knock them down every single weekend. Mayor McDermott has gone on social media and complained before about all the NIPSCO wires that go down near Horseshoe Casino. Almost every single weekend, somebody hits one of those poles and knocks a line down. You might want to bury those.
Well, here, just a larger issue here.
And we better get to the calls.
I know. And by the way, I happened to have dinner last night at Byway Brewing, and I brought my grandkids out. It was actually McDermott's party for Left of Center podcast, and I was so glad to see that has gotten so successful. But here's the thing, Tom, is that I think it's kind of bearing to us that there are a lot of companies coming in here because we're hot from the outside, and they're buying stuff, and they don't share the same, we're not holding their feet to the fire, and this is what you need to do. Look at the last British Petroleum owned, locking everybody out. That's unforgivable. You got U.S. Steel that has now been sold to Nippon. You have the Times is owned by an out-of-town company. It's
owned by a guy in Florida. NIPSCO is basically headquartered now in Columbus, Ohio.
Exactly. So, I mean, we have to, and part of the reason that these companies don't get held to the fire, you got to do this. If you're going to come here, this is what you got to do, is because of the same problem of our communications, is that we have 19 overlapping municipal taxing jurisdictions, as Matt Reardon would say, right? None of them want to work together. We have no centralized power that could say this is how it has to be. okay? We don't have that here in Lake County or Northwest Indiana. Certainly Lake and Porter County, we don't even care about each other. These things come out during catastrophes. These things come out when companies come in and they don't want to reinvest in the local community. British Petroleum has
they do nothing. They do nothing compared to the old Standard Oil.
Nothing.
I know that firsthand. I know better than just about anybody that's on these airwaves. What Standard Oil used to invest in the community with versus BP, it's a joke. But
all right, man. I think we could go off, but
let's go back to the calls. Good morning. You're on the air.
How you doing, Tom?
Good. How are you?
Good. Speaking of that kind of thing, has anybody heard about how much money BP has donated to the relief effort here in Northwest Indiana? I haven't heard a thing.
I don't think they're going to. I mean, it's a great one. I mean, Jed's walking away, but it's a good point. So Lee just called and said, how much money has BP given to the relief effort in Northwest Indiana? The answer is zero. The answer is zero. And again, they don't care.
TV commercials.
Right.
They run a TV commercials 24/7 here. How invested they are in the community.
Yeah, they're invested. They're invested in. First off, those commercials you're talking about. It's pretty funny where they have the woman, the Hispanic woman who's the banker. She's not even from here. She's not from here. They couldn't find anybody locally to do the interview, so they got somebody from Illinois to do the interview. I mean, again, they're a joke. They're just a joke.
I know. On another note, you're mentioning that because of identity theft, you don't write checks. I had just the opposite problem. My identity's been hacked so many times, I don't even know who I am anymore. And I had an account with a big telecom company. Went to AutoPay. The minute I went to AutoPay, I think they're based out of Texas. Somebody in Texas hit my account for about, I think, $180, and then I contacted the telecom company, and in the process of them trying to straighten it out, I got hit again from Texas. So I went back to pay by check. But I had another issue here with a local bank here, right here in their neighborhood, based out of Michigan City, I think it is.
Yep, I know which one.
A weird case. I went to take $100 out of my account at the ATM, and I got a notice. I've had about $1,000 in that account. I got a notice. Not only did I not have $1,000 in the account, I owed the bank $800 because there was a debit of $1,800 on my account.
Wow.
I was never notified by that bank. Straighten that mess out, and then about 2.5, 3 years later, again, my ATM card wouldn't work.
Well, like the gentleman from Munster that called this morning, who was a bank executive, said, they basically, once they have your information, they kind of lay low and then attack every so often. That's why you have to change your account.
Well, the weird thing was the response of the bank, because about 2.5 years later, my ATM card stopped working. I went in the bank, and they said, "Oh, yeah, well, we shut your account down 5 days ago." I said, "Well, why didn't you contact me?" So, no answer. Again,
yeah, kind of like no answer. Hey, Lee, it's kind of like no answer from the U.S. Attorney's Office. I'll just give out their number. If anybody wants to report the fraud going on at the Whiting Post Office, give the U.S. Attorney's Office a call at 219-937-5500 and let me know if you hear from them, because I've left them 4 phone calls and I haven't heard one thing from them. So, hey, Lee, thanks so much. We got some more callers.
I sympathize with you.
All right, thanks. Thank you. 845-1100. We've got a bunch of calls. Let's move on. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Tom.
Good morning.
As a Gary resident, I still don't have power. So, and what I'm upset about and disappointed and embarrassed of all this race baiting going on right now. It's uncalled for. I get it. Next year's an election year. Everyone is pandering. I get it. It's the outside race baiters that are coming into the city, coming into Northwest Indiana. As far as I'm concerned, you're not welcome.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. You know what? They're claiming it's race. They're claiming it's racism, and what it is it's the the incompetency of NIPSCO. And you know what? Maybe NIPSCO's the one that planted the story because it's a great way to protect them. Go ahead.
Well, I'm out and about all day. I'm everywhere in Northwest Indiana. And I talked to 4 different workers yesterday, different fields. One from Dyer, one from Highland, one from Portage, and one from Munster. They all just got their power on yesterday, right?
Yep.
So this idea of this, I'm still out. All of my neighbors have power, and I have nothing wrong with my weatherhead. So I have a couple phone calls to some friends that are linemen trying to figure out what the heck is going on, why my house is not on.
And you live in Gary.
I'm sure it's, yeah, exactly. Well, if you want to race bait, I could throw it right back at them, right? Gary is 86% African American. It's 11% white. Out of the white people, 5% are males. So I'm the true minority of Gary, Indiana. Not everybody else. I'm the lowest number you can get. Now, I know that's going to be inflammatory for a lot of people, but, you could just suck on that for a while and listen.
Well, by the way,
I don't have power.
Jed just
people
texted
in Munster
me.
Still don't.
Yeah, Jed actually lives in Munster, and Jed just texted me and said he got his power on late Monday. Okay, so where was the racism? Yeah. I mean, Jed, he's white. Okay, you're white. Where's the racism? This is ridiculous.
I am tired of hearing this. This is the sole reason. One, next year's an election year, so everyone's pandering. This is another attempt to divide all of us. This is so divisive. Every single person is suffering. This storm has affected every single person in Northwest Indiana and Glenwood and Lansing, and Linwood still looks like a disaster area.
You know what?
It's unbelievable. The scope of this storm.
So during the day after the storm, I think I took 107 calls in about 4.5 hours. If I could tape and replay any comment, it would be what you just said. Okay, what you just said. You are spot on. You are totally spot on about this. Again, this craziness that this is racism. How is this racism? How is it racial that there are people in Gary that suffered, but there's still people in Dyer? I've got a friend who lives out in Dyer, and they still don't have power this morning. All right, and they're white.
Right.
So are they?
There's people in Portage. Portage and Hobart. Oh, that's where the other town was. I talked to a guy from Hobart, and he said he just got it on yesterday, Tuesday. So this again, it's based on populace, right? Yes, Gary's 87% African American, so thus more African Americans are going to be affected by it, right? No different than if you reverse that for the town of Griffith. Right, well, you just reverse the numbers. It's exactly the same.
Well, and here, let's just break things down. All right, who has more contacts with NIPSCO? Eddie Melton, okay, who worked for NIPSCO for years, or Tom McDermott? Tom McDermott worked as a lineman for 1 year, I think, for NIPSCO. He worked as an apprentice. I think he worked there for a year, maybe it was less. But, he had a year in, and that was like 20 years ago. So who has the contacts? Mm-hmm. Okay, the contacts obviously would be the guy that worked at NIPSCO for years. And then you're claiming that his community is being treated unfairly and it's racism. Well, how about all the people in South Hammond that didn't have power? All right. How about right. Yeah. Let's talk about the fact that last week NIPSCO went and hooked up a transformer, and they hooked it up incorrectly, and they basically backfed their system. So people from Whiting and Robertsdale and East Chicago lost power for 4 days. Was that racism? Because a lot of those people were white, they were Hispanic, and they were black. Lynette, didn't you lose power again last week?
That's when the...
No, I didn't.
You did not.
That was when the 6 transformers in sequence all blew.
Yeah.
It was one after the other, after the other, after the other.
Right. Yeah. Was that an act of racism?
So I just want,
no.
I just want the race baiting to stop. It's divisive by design, right?
Again,
and the outsiders coming in, throwing a can of gas in the fire. I don't appreciate it.
Think about it for a second. Just think about this.
Yeah,
Is the source of this claim of racism? Maybe it's coming from somebody even in NIPSCO because they have no other way of explaining what they did. So come up, create a great story. Create a great story. It was their incompetence. Here you've got Ron who calls in and says, "I've been in the same house since 1967. Have you seen a tree crew? No. Have they changed out a pole in your neighborhood? No." Okay, well, you know what? If you leave something out in the weather for 60 years or more, it's probably going to become, it's probably going to weaken. It's probably going to rot. And at some point, that pole's going to snap in a storm. There you go. Unbelievable. Right. Hey, thank you so much for the call.
This is a perfect time. Yeah, I mean, a perfect time to come together.
I agree.
And a lot of Northwest Indiana people have done that. Do your wellness check on your seniors. Keep doing that. Eventually, power is going to come on. But, again, just because this is an election year and I'm seeing faces I haven't seen in 2 years, right? People of Northwest Indiana need to wake up. And there's one guy I want to give a shout out to, and that's the mayor of Portage. Bonda. That young man is a rock star.
Oh, absolutely.
He's going door to door himself.
Yep.
He is absolutely amazing. I want to give him a shout out, and all the linemen and all the women that are cutting trees and hanging wire. And it's a dangerous job all around my house. That's why I always set out a cooler of water and Gatorade for them. So I cannot give them enough praise. So dangerous jobs. They're away from their families. Talked to a guy from Louisiana. He's married with 2 kids. He's going to be up here for a month. So they're sacrificing as well. Give them a darn break already.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks so much for the call. Great points. 845-1100. Let's take a few more calls before we go to a break. Good morning. You're on the air.
Hey, Tom, your banking situation you were saying?
Yes.
Okay. We had a friend that happened to a couple years ago, and they got her for about similar, about $10,000. And like you said, the mental part of it, you're going to get your money, but you want your money now.
Well, you want your money now, and you feel violated. I mean, look, it's like somebody sticking their hand in your pocket and taking the money out. I mean, you feel violated. All of a sudden, it's like, well, who do I trust? I mean, it's crazy.
I'll just give you a quick tip to make sure this never happens again. So, I got my savings account, got my checking account with a good chunk of change in it, like it sounds like you had. Okay, and then I just opened another checking account. And do you have your banking on your phone or your computer?
Yes, I do.
Okay, open up another checking account, and here's what I do. I'll sit down. If my phone bill and my NIPSCO bill are $300, I just take it out of this account with 2 clicks, right into the other one with a click. It takes about 15 seconds, and that way I know if anybody gets into that account that I paid that with, they're not going to have too much fun. Because there'll probably be about $18 left in it.
I got you. So it's like a clearinghouse. It's a clearinghouse just for bills. That's a great idea. Great idea. I didn't think about that.
And I use it for my gasoline because you hear about these card scrubbers at the gas stations, at the groceries. Anytime I do it, it's faster than you could do 2-3 transfers faster than you could write your name on a check.
No, you're right about that. It's a great idea. I love that idea. Hey, great tip. Great tip. Thank you so much.
Yep.
All right. 845-1100. We've got some more callers. Good morning. You're on the air.
Hey, first of all, kudos to Tom, to you guys on Region Radio, because you know what? Jed was right. It's the communication. Safety, Steve calling. Communication is the problem. Take a great example. Look at the city of Hammond, what they did through that storm. Now, I'm just going by what I read. And the thing is, the mayor got together, the neighborhood got together. Kudos to the police and the fire department. They're out there to protect the citizens. And somewhere along the line, Tom, we have to come up with a disaster prepared committee throughout Northwest Indiana, because you know what? This is just a lesson.
I agree with you.
The beginning of
Steve,
future things.
I agree with you. But I've got to say, first of all, there was a lot of cooperation between communities. Okay, Hammond did a phenomenal job. You're right, but every community has been working together. They've been supporting each other. Departments within communities have been supporting each other. Somebody texted me and said, well, how about Mailman? He's your friend. Now, Dave Warple's retired, and he has nothing to do with my missing mail. That was ridiculous. But I will give a shout out to Dave Warple. Dave Warple has been out there cutting trees for people. All right, he's been out there day in and day out talking to people. I think that the 2008 flood showed that we cooperate when Hammond sent its Public Works Department down to Highland and Munster to help clean up. You do see cooperation between the communities, but the one missing link is NIPSCO. Okay, NIPSCO has their community affairs board that Jed sat on for 17 years. Yeah, that's great. They gave him lip service, but in reality, they didn't do anything. Again, Steve, you know exactly where I'm talking about. You go along Calumet Avenue. The next time you come out here, of course, I hope you get in touch with me first and foremost, but when you're here, I'm going to take you out on Calumet Avenue, and you tell me how far these poles are listing. And those poles along Calumet Avenue, correct me if I'm wrong, they're carrying 32 to 35 kV. Okay, that's a pretty heavy load, and they're listing 30 degrees, and you call NIPSCO, and it's like, NIPSCO, may I help you? Pole, well, what's the number? Okay, thank you. And they hang up, and nobody ever does a damn thing about it. I mean, where is the plan that says, you know what, those poles are old, we need to replace them, we need to do something new, we need to put them underground, we need to put certain lines underground. NIPSCO doesn't know how to dig a hole. Okay, they don't know how to dig a hole except the hole that they dug us into. That's the only hole they know how to dig.
Oh, absolutely. And, you look at everything else, every newer community have underground cables running. Those wooden poles, they're obsolete.
Yep.
And you're absolutely right, because it poses a risk for the fire department. Any citizen in the area, when somebody hits those poles, they knock them down. And the time that it takes them to I remember when I was in the fire department, sometimes we'd be waiting forever for the NIPSCO to get out there to fix
Steve,
those lines.
you live out in Arizona, and you've got buried cables out there, right? Not all of your lines are overhead. Okay. When I'm down in Florida, not all of our lines are overhead by any means. All right. Why is it that NIPSCO, you go into Illinois, and Illinois, ComEd has a number of their transmission lines are buried. But in Indiana, let's just stick up a few more telephone poles. Let's stick up a few more utility poles, string some more wire, hang some more transformers, and see what happens. That's how NIPSCO takes it.
Because you know what? They could save money and make money. And guess who ends up paying in the long run? The poor people right now that the wooden poles snapped. Those are the poor people. And NIPSCO's got to be held accountable. And you know what? I'm glad to see that this Allen guy wants to try to do something about it. I mean, although a class action lawsuit, do we really win it? But, something has to be done. And hopefully some more other communities will come in and say, hey, you know what? Let's give NIPSCO a run for the money. Let's bring another power utility company in.
Well, I think that's a possibility. I think having a second utility company, lots of areas in the nation have a second utility company. I think that's a consideration. But what I'd really like to see is I'd like to see some unity. I think Jed said, Matt Reardon says there's 19 overlapping jurisdictions in Lake County. I'd like to see those 19 get together, basically bring NIPSCO in and say, hey, you know what? You have to get permits from us when you do any work, and we're not giving you any permits until you start showing us what you're doing to upgrade our system. I think if the community start playing hardball with NIPSCO and the state continues their investigations, maybe something changes, because NIPSCO is deplorable. They're an embarrassment. They're an embarrassment, Steve.
And the other thing
you can't imagine, since you left here, it's gotten worse.
Oh, I can only imagine. From what I see and I understand, and it's a shame to see that there's no upgrades. Hammond, Gary, East Chicago, the oldest communities in ever around, and they still have the same, if you want to call it, a wood pole infrastructure that needed to be changed in the 70s. And, it's about time something's been done. And, Tom, I just want to thank you guys for what you do. And, Arizona, you guys make national news and some unfortunate news, but you know what? Kudos to, and I always say this, why the region radio was ran good? it's guys like you and that list that Jed has that you guys come together. And what would we do without a little station like that? And the nice thing about it, locally owned. There's a lot to be said.
Absolutely. And Steve, one more thing. Now you'll get me every other Thursday in addition to Wednesday. There you go. Hey, thanks, Steve. Thanks so much. Great to talk to you. Let me know when you're coming to town. We're going to take a quick break. I know we've got phone calls waiting. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to The Morning Call on WJLB 1230 AM, 104.7 FM. We'll be right back.
I'm Pastor Eric Boone, pastor of the Tree of Life Church here in the great city of Gary, Indiana. The Notre Dame Credit Union. Go beyond and above to make sure that we are in position to make that greater impact. Listen, this credit union is one of a kind. And I'm looking forward to the future because I know that we will continue to do greater things together, and I'm forever grateful for a credit union like this.
Visit NotreDameFCU.com.
Plumbers Local 210 is building the future, and we're looking for service plumbers to join our team. Our training center invests nearly $500,000 every year to make sure our members are the best in the industry. From a 5-year apprenticeship and an associate degree at Ivy Tech to ongoing certifications in safety and new technology, our plumbers are trained for excellence. Every member is drug tested and licensed for your safety and peace of mind. When you need plumbing work done, make sure you ask for the license. It's your right to ask.
We've had some cars run into the barrier wall, not paying attention. They were on their phone.
Texting, scrolling. Yeah, it's bad. Most often they be on their phones or they're just not paying attention. They can cause a crash.
We could stand on the side of the road and watch every other vehicle looking down into their lap as they're passing us. You know what they're looking at. They're looking at their phone.
Phones. On their phones, not paying attention.
Phones. I'm not a mathematician, but I say probably about 80% of the people who pass me are on their telephones.
No call, text, or video is worth putting yourself or a road worker in danger. When driving through construction, LIUNA members ask you for your sake and ours.
Slow down, stay off your phone, please. Be aware where we're at, where the cone zones are at.
Stay off your phones and buckle up and drive safe.
We're not asking for much.
This is Brian Short, business manager for the Indiana Laborers District Council. Everyone deserves a safe place to work. Do your part in the cone zone. Slow down, save a life. We're all in this together.
A message from Laborers International Union of North America and affiliated locals.
Have you ever considered becoming an iron worker? Local 395 is now accepting applications for their apprenticeship program. Go to ironworkers395.com. Look under the training section, click on apprenticeship, and scroll down to the application. You must be 18 years old, have a high school diploma or GED, and you must be physically able to perform the work of the trade. Find out more by calling the apprenticeship school in Lake Station at 219-962-7675 or visit ironworkers395.com.
All right, we're back, and we've got callers, and we'll take the first call. And good morning, you're on the air.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
You know, you keep talking about communication. You know, there are some of us who are trying to communicate on this station for 12 days, but a lot of times you get the host talking amongst themselves, and then you get the callers that ramble on and tell me the same story that I could basically repeat, and I don't even know them personally. Some of these stories, it'd be nice to stick to the subject at hand instead of talking about what happened in 1974, especially when you had pertinent information such as you have constantly excellent content. But I want to touch on something Dave from Gary stated, and he's 100% correct. And I heard him say it the other day. He's tired of the victims, and I know exactly where he was going. He talked about he still doesn't have power. I got it. But he sort of mentioned one thing that I want to add is he talked about the outsiders coming here and speaking. I just want to say I've had power the whole time. Maybe he needs to understand this. There are something in the younger community, what they call content creators. You have content creators who live in the city of Gary, who are spreading things to the younger people within the city of Gary that it's all about race.
Oh, I agree. Here, hold on. Let me just jump in. Let me give you the perfect example. How about the buffoon who basically claimed that Paul Goddard, when Paul Goddard and Region News Source reported about the shooting at the utility truck, that it was all racism, all right? And a guy named Corey Shepard who still refuses to apologize. Okay, he created all that false narrative, claiming that Paul Goddard and Region News Source was racist because they made up that story and it didn't happen. And even after Mayor Eddie Melton put out a statement apologizing for the situation and saying that it was totally uncalled for and he was repulsed by it and did all the right things. Even after that statement, even after the police put it out there and another news source, the guy said he wasn't going to take back his comments. You're right. There are people that sit there that make this stuff up. All right. There are people who, I posted about the fraud that I went through with the Whiting Post Office, and most of the posts were right on. And then I get somebody who says, well, I mean, they make some excuse for, you don't know that this happened with the Whiting Post Office, just like that Krista, the postal inspector, who told me that, basically they don't know for sure that it happened there. Well, how else did it happen? Okay. I didn't steal my own check and forge the check. So how else did it happen? I mean, there are people who they come up with these narratives and these stories that have no value whatsoever. And I give Dave a lot of credit because he lives in Gary. He's proud of Gary, but he's right. It's not racism. It's the fact that NIPSCO didn't do their job.
But some of us, Tom, over the decades, and I've owned properties, plural, who would try to bring up issues such as what you're speaking of today. And you always are hammered for somehow, some way becoming a racist, a sexist, a bigot, or a homophobe. Where, as you just alluded to, Paul Goddard, I know the exact person you're speaking of who wrote that. As a matter of fact, that same person at one time did an op-ed in one of our local daily papers. The same person who, again, accused Paul Goddard, who's a godsend, of being a racist because he reported a fact. Then going forward, as you stated, once it was proven, by the mayor of the city of Gary that yes, it happened. No, it wasn't some sort of I heard one person say, well, actually what it was, they know the person, but he was being robbed, and they were. Come on,
baloney.
But it would not apologize even at. Then he went on to attack Paul Goddard. In other scenarios, well, his page, blah blah blah. See, they try to drag Mr. Goddard into political speech. He stays away from that. So he's commenting on facts, what happens. It's like, let me shoot the messenger. And it continued for days.
You know what?
It wasn't just one person.
You just gave me an idea. I'm really peeved over this business of all the mail being stolen out of the Whiting Post Office. And again, just as an example, I posted it on the Hammond site. I posted it on other sites, and I got 1 or 2 responses. I posted it on the Whiting Robertsdale site. I got 38 responses of other people who had mail stolen out of the Whiting office. You know what? Maybe I'll just start sitting here claiming it's all racism, that's why the mail is getting stolen. Maybe then I'll hear from the U.S. Attorney's Office, because the U.S. Attorney in Northern Indiana, who could prosecute this, who could basically launch an investigation, they don't even bother to respond to the phone messages. So, Randy Bell and Mr. Milred and all the others that, if any of you are listening, you feel free to give me a call. You have my number. Give me a call and let me know, because I haven't heard a response otherwise. So maybe I'll sit here and claim it was racist. I'm not going to do that nonsense. I'm not going to play that card. But that's how stupid it would be to claim racism when it comes to Mother Nature. That's crazy.
But in fairness to these elected officials in some of these communities, they're not putting that flame out. I saw all the interviews personally. It's like you're sort of alluding. I'm talking about the elected officials. You're alluding to the fact that yes, I am a victim. It's poor me because of X, Y, and Z. Instead of saying, we need to stop that. Here's the deal, and I agree with people who say, yes, NIPSCO has some criticism to be had, but you could also admit Gary had 100-mile-an-hour wind.
They didn't put any brakes. The elected officials in Gary didn't put any brakes on the racism.
They're
claim.
not.
Nope, you're right about that. Hey, thanks so much for the call. Thanks so much for the call. 845-1100. Got more callers. Good morning. You're on the air.
What's up, Tom? How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Hey, didn't this? I recall 4 weeks ago. Wasn't NIPSCO the greatest company in the world because they're going to power all these data centers, and it was going to be no problem, and they promised they got the power to give us, and it's going to be great, and everybody's going to be like Hobart and taking in $100 billion an hour, and our power rates will never change because in NIPSCO we trust. And now they're the bad guy.
And when did you get power again? When did your power go back on, Man Mac?
Like day 11 and a half.
Day 11 and a half. So were you targeted due to your ethnicity, your race, your sex, your sexual orientation, your age?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but I identify now as a black, gay, homosexual, transitioning, gender-bending, red and blue-haired freak with 700 tattoos on my right arm and 47 piercings in my nose. Are you aware of that?
Well, again, you were off 11 and a half days. Jed just texted me and said he was off till Monday night. All right. My friend Donnie Erminger got power, I think, sometime on Sunday, was it? I mean, there were lots of people that didn't get power. It had nothing to do with race. And the last caller made a great point. Nobody from Gary has discounted that. Mayor Melton should have gotten on the airwaves and said that's not true. Racism has nothing to do with it. But he didn't.
Yeah, but he did, though. That's the point. There wasn't a talk of racism until the two black kids from Gary shot at the NIPSCO people. And when NIPSCO said, that's enough, we're not going to tolerate your silliness and your foolishness of attempting to murder utility employees who're trying to give power back to you, everybody out. And as soon as they said that, that's where the racism cries came from. So if it would have happened in Munster, you think the guy from NIPSCO is going to go, oh, let's just hang out in Munster while we get shot at? No. I mean, and that's where it started. And it started with Eddie Haskell Melton. It started with the chief of police of Gary. It started with what's the girl on Tuesday, whoever the hell her name is, Michelle. Jed, oh, it's racism. But what do you mean it's racism? You get shot at, you're out. You got to protect yourself.
Well, and let me just and let me point this out, okay? Of all the mayors and all the civic leaders in Northwest Indiana, which one worked for NIPSCO? Which one had a career at NIPSCO? Oh, yeah, Eddie Melton. I mean, I'm sorry.
Oh, I think that's the king of DEI or whatever it is over. Doesn't his wife host on Wednesday?
Oh, you're talking about the chief operating officer, Mike Suggs.
Yeah,
okay.
I think his name's Mike Suggs, right?
You had Eddie Melton and Mike Suggs both worked for NIPSCO. All right, and they worked in community relations, community affairs. Okay, community engagement, and so all the years that they were
shot at the NIPSCO employees,
the years that they were in those jobs, didn't they once come home and look and say, "Good God, what a mess in our backyards and in our alleys and in our streets. We need to get some tree crews out here, like Ron said, to trim the trees so that when the wind blows, the trees don't knock down the power lines." Or, hey, maybe we need to replace those poles because those poles are older than us. But nobody did that.
Hey, I'm just wondering, too, wasn't there a group of guys, like, I think it was on the radio, and I remember Jed used to say radio's dead. Radio's dead. I'm like, this radio thing seems to be going pretty good so far. But I remember a group of guys, it was like Frank Mervan, Andy Quinnell, Matt Reardon, Jed, and who's the guy who's got his pants too short? That's our representative. What's his name? Frank Mervan. Yeah, and they all, because this communication thing, now I know what it's called. I called them a bunch of times. They never answer the phone. It's called NISA. Wasn't that the communication central they put at Gary Airport and spent a boatload of money?
Yeah, they did.
Look, does anybody have NISA's number?
Well,
did NISA help anybody? I don't know. Did they provide the NIPSCO employees in Gary with bulletproof vests or
and by the way, I'm
Or
sitting here.
bulletproof hard hats?
I'm sitting here and I've got my email open. I've got my laptop open, and I just get a 30% off discount coupon on pants at Men's Warehouse.
From NISA?
No, from Men's Warehouse. But you just mentioned Mom Ravana, so you want me to forward this to him? Anyway, look, here's the problem. Okay, I think the communities in Northwest Indiana worked very well together. I think they did an amazing job in their own communities, taking care of the problems that they could. But at the end of the day, Rick Rifa, Tom McDermott, Anthony Copeland, there isn't a mayor, there isn't a town council member in Northwest Indiana, Bob Carnahan. I'll throw Bob's name out just because Bob will say, hey, you forgot me. Not one of them can go out and restore power. Okay, that's up to NIPSCO. The cities and towns did their job, though. They cleared the streets, they cleared the right of way, and NIPSCO basically was overwhelmed with the problem. And you can say, well, 100-mile-an-hour winds, Tom. Yeah, but 100-mile-an-hour winds blow through Illinois, and they blow through Iowa, and they blow through Nebraska and Florida all the time, and this doesn't happen there. Why does it happen here? Oh, because for years, NIPSCO sat on its thumbs and did nothing to maintain their system. That's the problem.
Yeah, like I said, hey, do you hear that, Tom? There's someone at my door. Oh, wait, hey. Oh, my God, it's a guy from NISA. He's asking me if I need power. Oh, I already got it. But thanks anyways. Go back to the Gary Airport and take a seat. All right, Tom, good luck with the show, bro.
Hey, thanks so much. Thanks, man, Mac. Always entertaining. 845-1100 is the number to call. We've got more callers. Good morning. You're on the air.
I always enjoy coming on after Matt Mac. Okay, so Tom, I want to bring it back to your original topic because I had something similar happen years and years ago where there was similar to what has happened to you, but it's bleaching. So they would bleach checks, they'd bleach money orders, and I had a money order bleached. So the postal inspector, they actually have an office in Chicago at the main post office. So I reached out to them. I said, look, I think I know who it was because it happened to a couple other people I know. It happened to me, and I think I know who it was. I said, I got the paperwork with me. Can I bring it up to you guys, make an appointment? Came up. Of course, nobody bothered to meet me. I called them and say, hey, look, where are we at with this? Because I think I can help you guys with this. After a month, I finally got somebody on the phone. I said, isn't this literally, and I said, they said, oh, we haven't got to it yet. We haven't, we'll get back to you. I said, isn't this literally your one job? Isn't this literally your one job to investigate things like this? And it wasn't just an isolated incident. It happened to several people, just like it happened, like you're saying in Whiting. It's like, isn't this literally your one job as an inspector to look into these things? And of course, never got back to me.
Yep.
Nothing ever came of it. So again, this is nothing new. But again, this is just another one of the examples of why Chuck hates government because, there's a whole bunch of guys in Chicago making probably six figures. And I literally hand them the case. I said, here's all the paperwork you need. I can help you solve it. Never heard a thing from them.
Chuck, you're an amazingly bright guy, but you're not a law enforcement professional. But if I said to you, hey, Chuck, here's the check that was stolen from my account. Here is the identity of the person who basically endorsed the check.
Right.
Here's the information.
Handing you the case, right.
Like, how hard is it to figure this one out? Okay. And to have the local postal inspector, Krista, tell me, well, I'm not going to do it, though. I can't do anything about it. Well, there you go. And then she says, but don't talk about it on the radio because it'll be embarrassing and it probably will it might affect any investigation. I said, but you already said you're not going to investigate it. Well, yeah, that's true. We're not. So, like, what do you just don't want me to embarrass you? Is that what it is? Okay, I mean,
but again, this is literally your one job, though. You have one job. It's in the top. It's in the name.
Yes,
and you're not. And they did it. Again, like this is literally. Who knows how many people they have and what are they doing all day? Yeah, they have a whole fleet of police cars up there. What do they do all day? Nothing. And that's the problem.
And again, Chuck, think about this. Okay, I post yesterday. I posted on 3 different Facebook pages. Okay, in addition to mine. I get 1 or 2 responses for the one that says, what's going on in Hammond. Okay. I get 1 or 2 responses on the one that says what's going on in Whiting and Hammond and East Chicago. I post on Whiting, what's going on in Whiting and Robertsdale, and I get 38 people who respond and say, my God, the same things happened to me. All right. The Whiting Police Department says they've done over a dozen investigations this year, or police reports of this going on. All the local banks know about it. But everybody says when it goes to the Postal Service and the U.S. Attorney's Office, dead end. Okay, the U.S. Attorney's Office. Okay, we've got a gambling ring at Geno's Steakhouse. Oh boy, we got to get out there.
Right.
Because they took $200,000. If you take the 38 people that posted on Facebook since yesterday about what happened to me, that they had the same situation. If you multiply it times what, or you add up the amount that they've lost, it's well over $200,000. I would think the U.S. Attorney's Office would say, oh my God, there's a big story. We better get on this one right away. But I placed 4 calls to them.
Well, Tom,
nothing.
Maybe next time Frank Mervan's on your show or my show, we can ask him about it.
Yeah, well, yeah. When will that be occurring? When will that be occurring? Yeah, we'll hold our breath on that one.
It's just frustrating because you're basically, again, you're pointing out the fact that you've basically narrowed this down. Yeah. Any basic amount of police work, you can probably figure out who this is, and it's probably been going on for years. And yet nobody whose little job it is to do anything about it is doing anything about it. And I tell people all the time, I said, find somebody who cares. Well, because that's the unfortunate reality.
Well, and the sad thing is that you've got Whiting and Hammond PD, who both know about this, who've said they'd like to do more, but because it's the Postal Service and because it basically, it's banking, which falls under federal authorities, they can't do a whole lot. Okay, they just can't. They can refer it to there, which they've done, but then the feds do nothing. Okay, because we might have another illegal tip board or square board for the next Super Bowl, or we might have some parade to go to if you're the postal inspector, because you already told me you're not going to investigate this because it has to go to the office of the inspector general instead. It's like, okay, are you going to make the referral? No, you go to the website, you fill out the application. They'll never contact you. They'll just tell you that they received your application, but they won't contact you. Well, there you go. That makes me feel like my government dollars are at work. It's unreal, Chuck. It's just unbelievable. Hey, thanks so much for the call, my friend.
Yeah, good show today.
Thank you. Take care. 845-1100. We've got more callers. Good morning. You're on the air.
Tom, I have not heard anybody talk about FEMA. Now, right now, we have a situation, and it takes the whole area here. Now, it's my understanding, all these people who love Donald Trump, my understanding, just doing a little reading, that he's kind of cut back on some of the funds would be coming, and we need it now. The cleanup right now. Well, and I talked to a lot of people with the grocery stores and stuff like that. They said they had to throw away all the FEMA, meats and stuff like that.
Ron, wait a minute. Ron, wait a minute. You like to talk, but you don't like to listen. Ron, I believe. Well, but it's true. I believe that first of all, President Trump signed the order declaring a national emergency, that they're now eligible for aid. FEMA doesn't generally come in and do. There's not a lot for FEMA to do right now is the problem, okay? When I talked to the governor, when I had the governor on, he pointed the same thing out. He said, that he was able to send the National Guard in to clear the streets and do some of those things, but there's not that much because FEMA can't come and reconnect those lines, okay? And the state can't come in and connect those lines. So when you say, where's FEMA? FEMA has been activated, but FEMA is going to come in and basically offer assistance to those stores and those businesses that lost power and lost product and that kind of stuff. They'll do that. They will do that.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Because right now, people's homes and everything else, and like when they had floods or fires across America, FEMA came in right away. Matter of fact, the president would go to those cities, but I don't know if he ever came to this city, whatever.
Well, he signed the order. He signed the order actually and made the declaration, I think, within 5 days of the emergency, which they pointed out. Actually, one news organization I saw out of Indianapolis pointed out that was faster than than just about any disaster in the last 5 years, that it was actually almost record time for the president to respond. So they put all those resources into play now. Now the question is how soon do those businesses get relief? But he moved pretty quickly, Ron. You can't fault Donald Trump on this one. He did a good job. He did a good job. All right. Hey, thanks for the call. We got other callers. Take care. All right, we got to move on. Good morning. You're on the air.
Yeah, racism, there's racism against Chinese people, racism against Polish people, German people.
You know
racism.
what? If we're going to sit here and claim racism and discrimination, you're right. Look, here, I'll tell you. I pointed this out before. According to the U.S. Census, there's only about 3,500 people in the entire nation of 334 million people that are taller than me. Therefore, I'm going to claim that I'm being discriminated against because of my height. How about that? I mean, you're right. You can claim it on everybody, but it isn't racism. It's not discrimination.
Right. But you got Melton. He got nothing else better to say but bring that up. Because he
didn't
nothing.
Bring it up. In defense of Mayor Melton, he didn't bring it up. But like one caller said,
I heard him on the news.
Well, the one caller said, he sure didn't try and put the fire out. Okay, so once it was brought up, Mayor Melton didn't do anything to extinguish the flames. That's the problem there. He didn't start it. It was started by some bloggers, some content creators from Gary that started it, but he didn't do anything to put it to rest.
And I'll put that to rest. I know you're a Fever fan as well as I am.
Yep.
I've been reading that Sophie, that they're thinking about getting rid of Sophie at the end of the year because she's standing up for what's right. Well, and I'm telling you, if they do that, I hope her and Cece go together, and I hope they go to Italy and play and I will never, ever, 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 ever watch the WNBA. And I think all your Indiana callers and all the residents should write the Indiana Fever and tell them that. If they get rid of Sophie, we're done.
Look, I 2 points. One is I read a post the other day that said that there are men that know who Sophie Cunningham is. There are men that just haven't seen a picture of her yet. And the third group are the ones that are trying to figure out whether they're men or not. Okay, she's very attractive. She's a good player. 70% of all jerseys sold in the WNBA have either a number 22, Caitlin Clark, or a number 8, Sophie Cunningham on them. If they lose Sophie Cunningham and Caitlin Clark, they lost their entire fan base. When I went to that Chicago Sky game, there were 4,000 people standing in line to get autographs from those two. You looked over at the Sky, and seriously, the Chicago Sky are standing there, and they've got their hands out like, what's wrong with us? Anybody want our autograph? Not one person wanted any autograph from the Chicago Sky. There's 4,000 people waiting for autographs for two people. All right. They are extremely popular, and you're absolutely right. If they lose Sophie Cunningham, they lose the WNBA. They're not that stupid. I think Sophie Cunningham is going to be around for a while. I do. But I think they can't stand her. I think Stephanie White cannot stand Sophie Cunningham.
She needs to go. But you know her shoes sold out in 2 hours. 5,000 pairs of shoes they sold out in 2 hours.
Actually, it was 40 minutes, and it was worldwide, and it happened in 40 minutes. And the reason why is because there was a joke on Outkick Sports that her shoes at the time sold out about as fast as the percentage she has for a three-pointer, which, of course, is now 45.5%. I mean, she's an amazing player. By the way, did you know that in the game the other night, because of that controversy with Enes Kanter Freeman, that they actually...
That guy?
Yeah, the reason why Sophie didn't play the rest of the game is Stephanie White supposedly had her sit out because she didn't want her to be caught up in the controversy. The controversy? Are you kidding? She didn't have anything to do with it other than the fact that Kanter stood up and applauded her for hitting that three. That was so she ended up sitting the bench because if you remember before that, the game before she had 13 points. She was on fire. So, again, Stephanie White needs to go.
You see though where that guy that stood up and had that T-shirt on, He said he's good friends with her.
You know what? He says he's good friends with her, and he also is, of course, one of the people saying that he's going to apply for the WNBA. He's going to declare himself transgender. They've walked into that one. Okay, they can't define a woman. That's fine. Then you get guys like Enes Kanter who's going to apply, and the guy can dunk all day. They wouldn't stand a chance against that guy. I mean, it's just, go back to what Serena Williams said about playing against men in tennis. It's just ridiculous. Hey, thanks so much for the call.
Yeah, I'm a 56 Cadillac.
There you go. All right. Hey, thanks so much. 845-1100. Let's take another call. Good morning. You're on the air.
You know, Tom, the CEO's job at NIPSCO is to wring as much money as possible out of the existing customer base, while at the same time spending the least amount of money on maintenance. That's why they pay this guy $13 million a year.
Yeah.
He does his job well.
He does an excellent job. And don't forget, then show up on the radio and have some empathy and make it sound like you're really worried about the people that lost power. You could give a rat's back end. Yeah. I mean,
well,
it's
one other
ridiculous.
point, I'll let you go, is that you got to listen to the black station in Chicago, radio station. I won't mention their name. It's the number one in the city. But their viewpoint is 180 degrees from what you're saying. They claim it's nothing but racism.
Well, again, how is it racist that Jed Dietlo's about as white as you get, okay? Jed Dietlo, how is it racist that he didn't have power for days? How is it racist that Dave from Gary doesn't have power? How is it racist that Don Erminger didn't have power? What about all the white people that didn't have power? Okay, it had nothing to do with racism. Mother Nature doesn't say, "Oh, we'll hit the black neighborhoods, but we're not going to blow the wind in the white neighborhoods." That's just BS. The fact is that it all comes down to everybody suffered in this storm, including Gary. But when you look at it, who was in charge of the maintenance for those systems? Who were executives and senior managers over at NIPSCO? Let me see. Let's see. No, it wasn't Tom McDermott. Wasn't Rick Rifa. Wasn't Patterson. Wasn't Carnahan. Oh, Eddie Milton. Yep, he was. Okay. I mean, again, I'm sorry, but the senior leadership of the city of Gary worked for NIPSCO all these years. What were they doing? I mean, if I work for NIPSCO and I notice that my neighborhood needs improvement, I would think I'd speak. You'd think I'd speak up, wouldn't you? They didn't do a thing. So,
well, Tom, that's common sense. One last thing. Listen, on tomorrow's show, if you can ask the listeners to call in and find out how much they were charged for running their generators nonstop. Some of the gas bills I hear are astronomical from NIPSCO.
Yep.
To run those Generac natural gas generators.
Yep, I will do that. And do me a favor. Give the U.S. Attorney a call at 937-5500 and report on the theft at the Whiting Post Office. Maybe you'll get more response than I have. Hey, thanks so much for the call. All right, let's take a quick break. I know we've got callers waiting. We'll be right back. You're listening to The Morning Call on WJLB 1230 AM, 104.7 FM, the TuneIn app, and YouTube Live. We'll be right back.
Tech Credit Union supports the essential role of union labor in building strong communities. That's why we offer hassle-free banking, financial empowerment, and a commitment to your success. Save for the future, handle life's challenges, and trust a partner that stands by hardworking union members. Tech Credit Union, the better option for you and your money. Visit techcu.org or call 800-276-8324. Tech Credit Union, supporting union families every step of the way.
We've had some cars run into the barrier wall, not paying attention. They were on their phone.
Texting, scrolling. Yeah, it's bad. Most often they be on their phones or they're just not paying attention. They can cause a crash.
We could stand on the side of the road and watch every other vehicle looking down into their lap as they're passing us. You know what they're looking at. They're looking at their phone.
Phones. On their phones, not paying attention.
Phones.
I'm not a mathematician, but I say probably about 80% of the people who pass me are on their telephones.
No call, text, or video is worth putting yourself or a road worker in danger. When driving through construction, LIUNA members ask you for your sake and ours.
Slow down, stay off your phone, please. Be aware where we're at, where the cone zones are at.
Stay off your phones and buckle up and drive safe.
We're not asking for much.
This is Brian Short, business manager for the Indiana Laborers District Council. Everyone deserves a safe place to work. Do your part in the cone zone. Slow down, save a life. We're all in this together.
A message from Laborers International Union of North America and affiliated locals.
Do you like to work with your hands, creating something from nothing? Then think about Laborers Local 41. You'll get 432 hours of apprenticeship training, all while earning a wage with benefits and incurring no student debt. You'll travel to different job sites, learn tons of skills, and in a lot of cases, be the first one on and last one off a job site. It all starts at laborers41.com.
Enjoy the taste of summer at the Farmers Market at Fox Point. Every Tuesday from 9 to 1, shop locally grown fresh produce, delicious baked goods, artisanal treats, and local culinary creations. Just minutes from I-8094, the Farmers Market at Fox Point in Lansing, Illinois is a perfect spot to hear acoustic musicians, stretch with morning yoga, and enjoy community fun throughout the season. To see all vendors and entertainment, visit foxpoint.org. That's point with an E, foxpoint.org.
All right. I don't know where the office of the Investigator General is for the U.S. Postal Service, but I do know that the Northern District of Indiana, their office is in Hammond, and it's 8:10, and they should be in the office this morning. So I just want to do a shout out to those fine folks and tell one of them that they can return one of my 4 phone calls. And, special shout out to our U.S. Attorney, Adam Milred, and Randy Bell, no relation to Bob Bell, but you guys... I know Randy, so if you want to give me a call, you're welcome to do so. And again, hey, you guys made a big splash, big headlines over the gambling in Maryville. Well, according to the number of people that have complained on Facebook about the Whiting Post Office, it adds up a lot more. It's a larger dollar amount than what you even did with the gambling. So maybe you can get involved. 845-1100, we've got more callers. And I also have a text message here from someone who I won't say who they are. They do call in, but they say they just want me to know firsthand that NIPSCO's business model has switched over to do more with less. They're not hiring sufficient manpower to do the day-to-day maintenance, much less any upgrades. And there lies the problem. And that's somebody on the inside. So there you go. 845-1100, we've got callers. Good morning. You're on the air.
Hey, Tom Mulligan. Is that guy in Gary with the postal inspector? Is it Ligon?
Yeah,
Ligon,
it's Richard Ligon, and I'm going to give him a call. Somebody else texted me that name, and I'm going to give him a call because, again, to be told, well, it's an internal matter. It belongs with, it has to go through HR. Like, really? Because
Tom, let me be rude and cut you off.
Yeah.
Tom, you're a big shot, and you're whining about $8,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's yes or no.
Yes, I'm whining about $8,000. Yes.
$8,000. You're a big shot. You're 6'9". You're not hard to miss, or you are hard to miss. You ran a big festival. You know everybody in this area. Everybody knows you. Am I right?
Yeah, pretty much. You got me.
Okay. And you can't get a response.
Right. You're right.
Imagine the poor little old lady that has this same complaint.
Totally
if
agree
Tom
with you.
Dabertin can't get any. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You're on the right track. You got it. Go ahead.
If you can't get a response from anybody on this, with a radio show every Wednesday, sometimes Wednesday and Thursday.
And now it's every other Thursday,
wants
too.
To help, and nobody wants to help Tom Dabertin. Think about that person that would miss that $200 or $300 and how they'd be treated at the post office.
I totally agree with you.
That's
and look,
a crying
it's
shame.
Again, you're right on. And when I told the postal inspector and I said, look, I've got a radio show. I'm going to talk about this next Wednesday. what did she say? Oh, well, you don't want to do that because that might be embarrassing to the Postal Service. Well, who cares? Who cares? And then she says, well, that might basically interrupt any investigation. I said, well, who's doing the investigation? You said you're not doing one. Well, yeah, we're not. Well, I mean, again, you're spot on. If they can do it to me and they won't investigate it for me, then what about everybody else that's out there that's listening to this radio station that has a checking account, that's driving to work today trying to make a decent living, and you've got some scumbag who's stealing their livelihood, who's cleaning out their bank account, and the authorities will do nothing about it. And again, I've left my name and number at the U.S. Attorney's Office. They know who I am. They know exactly who I am. Their assistant U.S. Attorney, Randy Bell, actually before has met me and mentioned, hey, I know you run Pierogi Fest. You did a great job and all that.
Let me check you on that.
I haven't heard from them.
Tom.
Yes.
Tom, let me check you on that. Is it Randy Bell or Gary Bell?
Maybe it's Gary Bell. I'm sorry. Maybe you're right. I
think it's Gary Bell.
I'm so mad. I'm sorry. You're right. Gary Bell. You're right. But again, he's met me and he's even said he knew, oh yeah, I know who you are. You run Pierogi Fest, and he mentioned all that. He knows I'm on the air. Okay. I've left 4 messages and not one reply. Nothing.
Well,
okay.
Let me ask you this. I believe Gary Bell is a good man. Did that message get to Gary Bell?
I don't know. I wish I did. I hope that somebody checks that message line, but you have to call and you have to leave the message. Okay, so you leave the message and you say, again, it's Tom Dabertin. I called and explained the situation. Here's my phone number. I really appreciate a call back. Nothing. I called a police officer who works for the U.S. Marshals Service at the courthouse and asked him on Monday. I said, look, here's the situation. He said, yeah, no, I understand. Sure. I'll be glad to go over to the U.S. Attorney's Office and tell them, hey, here's what happened. You guys know who Tom Dabertin is. So he gave them the message. He gave them the message personally because he told me he did. Still nothing. I don't know. Maybe they were at a group meeting. A group outing. Maybe they're having the U.S. Attorney of Northern District of Indiana. Maybe they had a golf outing yesterday because I sure haven't heard anything.
Well, you get my point. You're a big shot in this area. Everybody knows you. You know everybody. And you can't get any juice on this. Think of that little old person living on a fixed budget that doesn't get any attention whatsoever. Thanks, Tom.
Hey, no, thank you. Thanks for pointing it out. 845-1100. We got more callers. Good morning. You're on the air.
Tom, you and Ron Matlock, you both have the same gripe against the federal government. And, that's just the way it rolls. I remember back when my identity was hacked one time, trying to get hold of the IRS. I actually went down to the Maryville office, and they wouldn't let me in because I didn't have an appointment. I asked the guard there, and he told me what you got to do is call Washington, but you've got to do it between 6 and 6:15 a.m. There's a 15-minute window when you can get hold of somebody in Washington to actually try to get some kind of mitigations, and that's what I had to do. If you called after 6:15, you'll never get through. It's just the way the federal government rolls. They don't care about Ron. They don't care about you. What you got to understand, the federal government has a system to protect. They could care less about the American public, the average Joe citizen. It's a monolithic structure in Washington. People that go to Congress see it all the time. When they get to Washington, they find out it's not about serving the American people. It's about serving the system. What you and Ron both, and I can understand Ron's point of view, where's the feds? But like I say, you look at any national disaster like the hurricanes in North Carolina, the fires in California, this happens all the time.
Well,
they don't care about the public. You need to understand that.
Well, again, look, I think in the case of the emergency and the disaster that occurred here, the storm damage, I guess you got to give Trump credit. He made the declaration right away, and it does free up a lot of federal resources to come into the area. Much of those are financial now. There's not a lot of boots on the ground that can be sent here because things are basically cleaned up at this point. So they're not going to send in bulldozers from the federal government. They're not needed, but what they're going to do is put a lot of money out here. In the case of my situation, though, with the fraud, you live up in the same neck of the woods that I do. And when you've got 38 people, okay, and that doesn't count the 3 or 4 people that told me on the street in the last few days that it happened to them. All right. I won't say the name of the church, but you know exactly which church I go to. I mean, it's the biggest church up there, and they've had 2 checks stolen out of the Whiting post office. The exact same thing. Right. And nobody will do a darn thing about it. Nobody will do a darn thing. And I apologize for calling Gary Bell Randy Bell, but you know what, Gary Bell, you do know me. You can call me. Because I've not heard a thing from the U.S. Attorney's Office, and forget the Postal Inspection Service. That was a waste of time.
My sister works at a post office, and she's been with them for 30 years, and she can tell you stories about what goes on. And she's not even anywhere near here. So I'm so used to stuff disappearing in the mail, I'm surprised when something actually gets through.
Yeah.
My wife, we were in Michigan one time, and we left a ring up at a rental up there, and the lady was nice enough to mail it back to us. The envelope showed up with a hole in it.
Yeah, and they probably knew there was a gift card or a rebate in there. Hey, thanks for the call. We got some more callers. Good morning. You're on the air. Good morning. You're on the air.
I was out of power for about 10 days, and after listening to a generator for about 10 days, it takes you about 2 or 3 to get your sanity back. Okay.
Yeah. You know what? Somebody actually, somebody in Florida told me that after you've heard those generators for days on end, it's really, really hard for you to regain your sleep rhythm because you're used to that noise.
Yeah. So anyways, I'm over it. And, I got to thinking, I'm like, the 10 days out of power, it literally sucked. But you know what? At least I'm not in the middle of the state of Indiana, and I don't got 8 foot of water in my house.
That's true. There are a lot of people in central and southern Indiana that got absolutely flooded. There are towns down from Indianapolis down to Cincinnati that have 8 and 10 feet of water right now. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So, you could just, you could cry on how bad it is, and just remember, people got it worse.
Yeah. And there's always somebody that has it worse than you. I guess that's true.
That's it. So we'll be all right.
All right. Hey, thanks for the call. 845-1100. We've got more callers. Good morning. You're on the air.
Well, most of the 400,000 people who lost their power in Northwest Indiana have gotten it back. There's still about 1,000 people who haven't.
Actually, it's not 1,000 people; it's 1,000 customers. So those customers each represent about 3 people. So, but continue, please.
Right. In any case, there are people who were out of power for weeks at a time, and this is an item out of the Chicago Sun-Times. Want to help Northwest Indiana storm victims, and they list a number of charitable institutions that you can make donations to: Catholic Charities, the Diocese of Gary, Flourish Church, and Flourish Community.
Yeah, well, how about the fact that the Chicago Bears gave $100,000 to Catholic Charities in Northwest Indiana to help with the relief efforts? That's pretty amazing. I mean, they gave $100,000 to the Chicago Archdiocese, but they gave another $100,000 to the Diocese of Gary, which is pretty amazing.
That's wonderful, but I think they would the $10 donation, the $20, the $25 or $50. My guess is all these institutions like Food Bank of Northwest Indiana, Gary Muslim Center, Gary NAACP, and the YWCA of Northwest Indiana, it all adds up. $10, $25, $50. I'm sure these institutions would be more than happy to receive your small amount because it adds up, and there's still people in need.
Yes, just don't send it by check in through the Whiting post office, because they'll never get it. Instead, Valencia Harvey and Jaden Bates will be getting it.
I was watching the news, and they were interviewing a Gary lady, and she said, "Hey, drop by with bottles of water or batteries. We could use that too." So there are a lot of things you can do to help out and help people who have been damaged by the power outages. There's a lesson to be learned, and that is there are a couple of lessons to be learned, and that is be prepared for the next time, because there will be a next time.
Yeah, and
another thing is.
And another lesson to be learned is that we have a very decrepit utility system, and we don't see much on the horizon of them fixing it up either.
Well, one of the problems, of course, was and NIPSCO didn't do its vegetation clearance. Well, that's a good lesson to be learned when it comes to our national parks, national forests, our state parks, state forests, and so forth. And that is that you're going to have lightning strikes. You're going to have people setting fires purposely, accidentally, and so forth. And it's good to keep those forests thinned out. It's not that you're not going to have wildfires. That's part of nature. But by thinning it out, and of course the eco-crazies have been battling natural resource managers for decades to absolutely stop all logging on public lands. And by managing the forest, if you don't manage the forest, the forest will manage you. And by keeping it thinned out, you make it easier for firefighters to deal with wildfires. And for the eco-crazies, the stories I could tell you would curl your hair in terms of the craziness.
I appreciate that, Walt. Hey, we've got to move on. We've got some more callers. Thanks for the call. Good morning. You're on the air.
Yeah, good morning there. Yeah, good morning there. I use some of your philosophy. I've always been doing it as well. I've got several bank accounts, and I think there's a couple of mistakes maybe you possibly didn't think of. The post office, as I understand, is under the federal. To back it up, they were going to cut the routes and the timing and delivery. They said, no, you can't do that because that's something in the Constitution or some legal procedure. Mm-hmm. Personally, I was always told that's a felony if you mess with, steal, or
it is.
change
It's a
mail.
felony. Yes, it is a felony. There's no doubt about it. But it has to be. Excuse me, but it has to be prosecuted at the federal level. It can't be prosecuted by the local local prosecutor.
And if you're not getting that federal level, I would go to Marvin.
Well, except that Frank Mervin, hold on. Let me just tell you. I've already heard all about this from the Postal Service. There's a 1996 law that was signed into law by Bill Clinton that basically says that these complaints, if it is internal theft, and this is just ridiculous, but if it's internal theft, then it is handled by the Office of the Investigator General, the OIG. If it's external, then the Postal Inspector Service can investigate it. And that's what this Krista told me, and that's what when I called the Office of the Investigator General, that's what they told me. And then they said that, they just don't follow up. So I tried all of that. So unfortunately, Congress doesn't have direct oversight of the Postal Service. That was made clear. I've actually pulled up the act. I read it myself. I have a brother that's a banking law expert, and he's an attorney, and he worked for the Fed. He worked for a number of banks and represented a number of banks, and he said the same thing, that the problem is that it's a federal crime. The U.S. Attorney's Office could handle it, okay? They won't even return my calls. And the Postal Service has this cockamamie law from 1996 that basically it's a jurisdictional issue, and so they won't do anything. So I appreciate the input, but
okay. No. Another thing you said, and I immediately acted upon it. I've been doing it always in the past. I didn't trust the toll companies taking auto pay out of my account. So I established with another bank a private account that deals just with tolls. And that way, if I did get cut, I wouldn't get it too bad. Now, I called up the banks just a couple minutes ago, and I told them, look, if I have any checks that are being canceled through and made out to a Chase, I don't care what the amount is, call me and stop it immediately, or I will take all my monies out of your bank. Now, I'm a big holder in several banks, in the almost millions, and they don't mess with me because they know I'll do it. They know I am the spook. I have a lot of money invested in different places, so nobody messes with me.
Here's the thing, though, so my bank, okay, would be glad to go after the individuals. Here's the problem: under the law, once Chase refunds that money, or the FDIC refunds that money to the bank and it goes back to me, they no longer have a stake in the situation. So there's the legalities of who has the loss, and Chase will not prosecute anybody either. And that's part of the problem. Hey, I appreciate the call, but we got a bunch of other calls, sir. Bunch more calls. I appreciate it. 845-1100. Got more callers. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Tom.
Good morning.
How are you?
A little aggravated over. I'm aggravated by NIPSCO and these claims of racism in Gary, and I'm aggravated over the theft of my mail and my checks. Otherwise, I'm doing okay.
It kind of goes to like the old thing of like crime pays, or there's no threat of prosecution these days, all the way from running through stop signs and waving at people as they roll through and look at you, or the criminal who did some terrible crime is now back on the street 3 hours later. I think people just realize that nobody's coming for them, and these crimes just they persist.
Just think about it for a minute.
Now, on the other end of things,
if I went down the street and I robbed a bank of $8,000, it'd be on the front page of the Times, right? But but these people are stealing $8,000 and nobody does a darn thing about it. You're right. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's like crime pays these days. Yep. I just see it. You know, they have no fear because they know they're back out on the street or back home, whatever, to commit more crime. You know that song. I will mention that someone else did too, or maybe it was you, 2007 and 2008 floods here in Dyer, okay? I was only out of power. Luckily, my part of my subdivision is connected to the hospital, St. Margaret's. And generally, my power goes out, and I could snap my finger in 3 seconds, and power would be back on. It just kicked in. It was the way things are set up here. Well, not so. This time, it was one complete blank. We did get our power. It was out Tuesday, and I got it back Sunday at like 4 a.m. Good 4 days. But let me tell you something. Someone else said this, too. I went through a flood in 2007 here in Dyer, and also in 2008. And let me tell you, I could go 2 weeks, even 3 weeks, without power. I also had no phone and no internet. And compared to water surrounding our homes and coming in through your garage and down your stairs to your basement and in your home and throwing everything, I mean... It could be
that's
worse. My mentality, and we used it in here in our neighborhood to keep ourselves sane.
Yep, it could be worse, no doubt about it.
Because, Tom, that noise of that generator, too, drove me up a wall. Or I have a propane or a gas generator. I chose the propane. I'd stick a tank on there at night. Generally, it would last me about 22 hours. I was only running my sump pit and my fridge. Before I'd go to bed, I'd have to put a new tank on. And I made it all on my own. I did have roof damage, tree damage, a lot of cleaning up. It's quite draining, but nothing compared to a flood.
Hey, thank you so much.
Nothing.
Thanks for the call. Thank you. The town of Dyer, we forgot. So the town of Dyer is here. I just looked up and saw their town manager, Dave Hine, looking at me like, okay, you want to shut up already and get off the air. So this is the end of my day. But just a shout out to the U.S. Attorney's Office. You can feel free to return one of my calls because guess what? I'm going to be back here tomorrow morning. And if you don't, I'm going to report on it. So keep it tuned all day right here to WJOB. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., folks. And thank you so much for the calls. I know we got a bunch of phone callers that didn't get on the air this morning. Give a call back tomorrow at 6 a.m. And I really like the one caller who just called and the one other person who said, maybe creating a second account that you just use to pay your bills and pay your tolls and that kind of stuff. That's a great idea. Thanks so much, folks. Thanks for listening. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
We've had some cars run into the barrier wall, not paying attention. They were on their phone.
Texting, scrolling. Yeah, it's bad. Most often they be on their phones or they're just not paying attention. They can cause a crash.
We could stand on the side of the road and watch every other vehicle